All right, we are officially live and we have some breaking news. It's funny because the internet almost didn't let us go live. It said that the traffic was super high right now. And I don't know if it was because of this or not, but we do have some breaking news coming straight from Etsy, from the Etsy CEO, Josh Silverman. Now, it's not directly to us, but it was posted yesterday. You may have already heard about the announcements or the updates, the features, the things that they're going to be doing differently. Some of these things are pretty big. And there's some things that are upsetting some older sellers, and there's some things that people are excited about. So we're going to be breaking that down, but we're going to also play the video and we're going to go through it together because I have not watched the full video yet, although I've heard little tidbits, and Chris has already watched it. He's already done some research. He's already found some of the features, some of the places, some of the wording, all of that stuff. So that stuff is already been distilled down, and Chris is going to do that for us. But what we are going to do is we are going to break it all down. We're going to listen to it, and we are going to see exactly what's going to happen in the future for Etsy. And I do think, just from what Chris has been telling me, Q4, it's just in time for Q4. And I do believe that this is a way for Etsy to kind of roll this all out before the big rush. And I will say, from what I've heard from Chris so far, is this is their attempt to try to help us sellers, which is cool. But the other question that I have is, did he address some of the things that we've been talking about? Did he address the mockup situation? Has he addressed AI? Has he addressed the different categories that we have to, now put or say how the product was made? What is happening? That's really also the support. Is he talking about the support that's non-existent? So I'd like to hear about all of that stuff. So Chris Schaefer, you've been a busy boy over there yesterday and this morning. So are you ready to dig in and first off, watch this replay of the video that was just released hot off the press?
I am, and we have been running around a little bit like headless chickens the last few days.
Yes.
Unlike typical Etsy, where they update one thing, like one line, one piece of a thing, they had a massive overhaul of their terms of service and their seller handbook, and it just dropped. Normally, they say, "Hey, here's some of the things that we're thinking about." Yesterday, they came out, and Scott, I know you haven't seen the video yet. I watched it when it dropped, and it led to me to some more questions than answers. It's not just about what he talks about, but I think we also need to discuss a little bit what he doesn't talk about. And hopefully now that they've addressed all of the things that are covered in the video, and that we're going to break down exactly what it means for sellers, because they don't really get into that in the video either, right? That would be entirely too easy if they just gave us a 9-minute recap of what they were going on, but not just what they've changed, but what they haven't. And hopefully now that they've changed the things that they've changed, they can focus on what they have. So I'm curious to see, Scott, if you think we're headed in the right direction. And then once we start to break these things down for sellers, if it's going to make everybody's life easier, more complicated, or kind of indifferent.
Yeah. And I know you've got some information inside of the handbook and all that stuff. So we're going to dig into that very deeply. But with that all being said, guys, let's just do it. Let's fire this thing up and let's see exactly what is going on. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to go ahead and listen in. So let me go ahead and press play here. And guys, if you would do me a favor in the comments, if you guys have already watched this or have heard about the features or the things that they're going to be doing, let us know in the comments. Is there something that stands out that you're excited about or upset about? I would like to know that. So if you would drop that in the comments, that would be good. That way we can get the conversation started. All right, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to the beginning if I don't screw anything up here. And let's bring her back. And here we go.
Hi, I'm Josh, CEO of Etsy. For nearly 2 decades, sellers like you have helped make Etsy the home for creativity and self-expression. Today, in a world with more automation and generic goods, Etsy's mission has never been more important, and you enable us to keep commerce human. We've grown a lot over the past few years. People flocked to Etsy during the pandemic, doubling our community in a relatively short amount of time. With tens of millions of new items and new customers, we needed to step up our operations in a big way, especially in areas like combating non-compliant listings. And while our investments in making Etsy a better, safer, and more joyful experience have been successful in many ways, we know there's more to do. To truly allow you and your unique items to shine for many years to come, we also need to protect and strengthen the magic of Etsy. We need to reinforce what we stand for so that everyone who comes to us understands why we're different and special. That's why today we're unveiling a series of updates across our policies, the shopping experience, and how Etsy shows up in the world. These updates center around, first, making sure we're crystal clear about what belongs on Etsy and why. Second, pulling that clarity.
Hey, Josh, are you going to do anything about the Disney stuff that's being listed out there and the Taylor Swift stuff? Just curious. I really wish this was done live, Chris, so we could actually be in the audience and ask questions, whether it's during or after. But that's the one thing I'd like to know. Are you paying attention? Josh, it looks like you are paying attention. Anyway, I'm just being a smart guy right now, but
I just realized we have the same haircut. I might need to go get a blazer to watch the rest of this video. It's funny, Scott. They called it a policy refresh, right, and a clearer shopping experience. I'm curious, once you watch, because I've seen this, I know you haven't yet. Once you watch through the rest of this, if you think that things are clearer or not.
Okay, cool.
Through to the shopping experience, and finally, bringing you, the people behind the items, front and center, to celebrate your role in the creative process. Let's start with our policies. Even as tools and technologies available to you have evolved, our stance on keeping Etsy the go-to place for original and special items hasn't changed. We've stuck to our core principles so creative entrepreneurs like you can easily connect with buyers looking for your amazing creations. But what we see today is that when people come to Etsy, they sometimes want more clarity about why the things they're seeing are allowed. And we've also heard that you want us to be clearer about our rules and enforcement.
Wait a minute. He's listening? Like, seriously? He's listening, Chris. So there better be something in here about some support stuff. There better be. It sounds like he's listening.
So he said sellers and buyers are confused as to why certain things are allowed. And I think you hit that before having seen this part of the video, right? Like, why is all the trademark stuff that clearly doesn't fall into one of your categories allowed? That I think we'll see could potentially still be a problem. But making things clearer for everybody, no one has a problem with, right?
But wait a minute though. Let's time out for a second. What my question would be is this: does the buyer really care? Do they go, oh, why are they selling t-shirts? I thought this was handmade. I don't think that's the case. I think it's more of the sellers being upset and saying, we thought this was a handmade platform. At least if I'm going there and I'm searching for something, I'm not going to be like, why did they? Now, again, if they had a garlic press on there that was nothing was special about it, or it wasn't part of a bundle for, an Italian cooking bundle that had like a cutting board that was personalized, that's different. But if they're just selling straight up stuff from Alibaba, I might question that. But not if someone's selling a print on demand shirt that they designed and it's a sweatshirt or a t-shirt or a mug and it's been. Anyway, we got more video here to watch. But
I think there's really three things that people have complained about, and they all come from the seller side, right? Nobody that ends up on Etsy and finds a random Disney thing listed there is complaining about it if they can get it at a good price.
Right.
All of the complaints come from the seller side.
100%.
Right? And there's three areas. One is, I thought this was purely handmade. So what is print on demand doing on here? Two is, what is all this either trademark stuff or clearly Alibaba, Temu, Shein stuff doing on here? And then three is AI, right? And so if we can address those three issues, great. But that buyers don't really care about that stuff. No. AI to some extent, based on what we're seeing so far in the Etsy buyer survey, but sellers are the ones who have been screaming about this literally since they made the print on demand change years ago. And it's just kind of gotten loud enough now that they're listening.
All right, let's get into
We're
it.
taking the opportunity to articulate our policies in a simpler, easier to understand way. We've reorganized them into new creativity standards with 4 distinct categories based on the seller's role in the creative process. To be clear, this is about reinforcing and clarifying what's allowed on Etsy, not changing it. We are still not allowing items that were previously prohibited. All items must be either made, designed, handpicked, or sourced by a seller. For example, vintage falls into the handpicked categories. And most craft and party supplies will live in the source.
Do you want to say something, Chris?
So, Scott, hearing that, do those 4 categories make sense to you?
Yeah, on the surface, they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep listening.
Okay.
By section. The consistent theme here is that items are infused with a human touch because that's what makes Etsy, well, Etsy. We understand that a policy is only as good as the efforts to enforce it. And we feel an enormous responsibility to remove items that don't belong on our site. We know this is also incredibly important to you and is one of the top things you've asked of us. Over the past several years, we've significantly scaled investments, resources, and capabilities in this space. Last year alone, we removed 4 times the amount of items that violated our handmade policy. We believe this new, clearer policy will help us to be even better going forward. The updated policy also paves the way for a better shopping experience. Our research shows that the top thing buyers want to learn more about is your involvement in your items. We've also heard from you, sellers, asking us to better distinguish between items crafted solely by you and items made using production partners or other tools. This way, your unique craft shines through. And so months ago, we kicked off an initiative that internally we call How It's Made. Teams across the company have been working to develop an ambitious plan to shine a brighter spotlight on you and your work while celebrating and uplifting amazing seller-made items for buyers. Let me walk you through what we're introducing now and what to expect next. Today, you might start to see new descriptors within item details on listing pages, showing whether the item is made, designed, handpicked, or sourced by your shop. As an example, this ceramic flower vase, handcrafted by Hester in New York, will say, made by Hester's studio. Whereas this beautiful anniversary gift from Vera in the UK that was created with digital tools will now say, designed by White Oval Studio. 2 items that clearly belong on Etsy, but are brought to life through very different processes. We've also made it easier for you to provide more details about your process in your listing form. You now have more options to choose from when it comes to sharing information about the materials and tools you use. Over the coming months, we'll also test ways to use this information to increase accuracy and expand the shopping experience for buyers with improved filters, new marketing experiences, and more. This work.
I'll be curious to see what the marketing things are. Does he talk about, well, I guess we'll hear in a minute, but you know, the marketing thing kind of it piques my interest. And I'm like, okay, cool. What else are we going to add for some marketing stuff? You know, we're going to do something that we can, you know, communicate with the customer and, you know, make it a better experience. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
I think one thing he just said that everybody has glazed over so far is that they're not right now, right? Everybody's focused on what dropped yesterday and what has changed between yesterday and today. But what he said is that they're going to be using all of this information to help buyers. And one of the things, Scott, you and I have talked about at length is how terrible the search experience is on Etsy. And we know, because we've listened to some behind the scenes interviews with Josh, that they're really looking to overhaul that. Part of that was gift mode. They were trying to just get rid of it. They know that that's not a solution to everybody, but it's a good way to get started. And what they're starting to figure out is they're going to need a little bit more information to help people sort and filter so that if they have a problem with AI created designs, that maybe they can just filter all of those out of their search experience and not have to think about it, see it, or look at it.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Work was inspired by you and how you bring your items to life. There are so many ways that can happen. Just take a look.
My own personal style is eclectic, it's colorful. Etsy for me was perfect for that because I knew I wanted to sell vintage. People know that if they want to source a particular pattern or an item, hey, go to Stan at that retro piece. If he doesn't have it, he'll find it for you.
When you buy a pair of my earrings, you're buying something that was made with my own two hands. Each time it comes out slightly different, even if you can't tell. And I think that's a beautiful and unique thing that comes with getting something handmade.
Keeping commerce human to me means that there is a real person behind the items that are being made. Sharing my process helps my customers really understand what goes into creating a piece.
My iPad has been my creative companion on Etsy for over a decade now. It's been my most trusted tool, and it inspires me to share my art all over the world.
We know that you want more agency over how to set up your listings for success. I'm excited to share that we'll soon give you more transparency and actionable insights than ever before into factors that can impact how you show up in search.
Ooh.
We'll show you specific information like listing quality and completeness, because it's important to surface high quality items from shops that buyers can trust to keep them coming back to Etsy and shopping from you. Finally, we're turning the volume up loud to show the world how sellers like you make commerce better by keeping commerce human. We're putting Etsy sellers front and center in our latest marketing campaign and refreshed homepage. In the coming days, in the US and UK, you'll see real Etsy sellers on billboards and across social media, demonstrating the many different ways that you make, design, and handpick your items. You'll also see TV commercials featuring Etsy sellers and showing how valuable your human touch is in e-commerce today. Here's a look.
What does a robot know about love? How to translate that leap inside the human heart into something we can see and hold. The fingerprints we leave behind show how determined we are to give the world a piece of ourselves. Etsy.
Just as important as your connection to.
Okay, I think that's we're almost done here. I think that, well, I want to draw this to everyone's attention too, because a lot of people are like, yeah, but that's just for handmade sellers. They're just going to highlight the handmade sellers. I'm not going to make it on one of those billboards. The point is this: Etsy is trying to drive traffic to their platform. So if this is like, so for the ones out there that are like, Etsy sucks because, they're not giving me the support. They're not giving me the tools. They're not giving me whatever, but they're giving you the platform still. So whenever I hear people that are bashing on Etsy, and I have at times, don't get me wrong, but you can see they're pouring a lot of money into bringing awareness and traffic. And if you think about it, they're doing it right now. Why? Q4. They want Q4 to crush, not just for us individually, but yes, they do, but they want their numbers to be bigger. Why? Investors. I mean, let's face it. They want their platform to be growing. So I think that's a really important thing. And I think the commercials are really well done from what I've seen so far. I think about, I'm like, well, they're not showing us in Canva, building our designs. They're not going to do that. They want the public to still think they're going there and you're getting someone that's, chiseling something or wood burning something or putting their earrings together and painting them. There is going to be that there still, but there's still a lot more on there. But to me, it doesn't matter that they're bringing attention to the handmade side. They're still bringing awareness to the platform. So kudos to them. Like I'm a fan. Like I'm obviously, like, we think it's a great platform to get started on. When people bash on it, I'm like, but they're bringing you traffic and they're giving you a website basically that you get to plug into almost immediately, and you pay a little bit of a fee to use it.
So Scott, one of the things, and I saw your ears perk up when he said, we're going to give you more tools to understand how and where your listing is ranking. That is something I've seen everybody glaze over up until this point. Again, very generic. No supporting documentation has come out about that yet. But the fact that they are rolling out more seller support tools is something that I'd like people to focus on. And then to your point about maybe they're not going to show print on demand sellers. Well, even in this video, which is the first time I've seen it in a lot of their promotional stuff, they did feature somebody curating vintage stuff. They featured somebody designing on their iPad. And then they roll out their commercial. And I want you to think about something for a second. They're bashing on robots. Etsy themselves uses a lot of AI and approves of AI. So do you think that that is a weird example to use when you, as a platform, are embracing AI? General people might not know that, right? So they're going to understand that. But from the seller perspective, you're like, wait, your seller support is AI, which is essentially a robot, right? Yeah. Your listing review is, for all intents and purposes, a robot, and you allow AI designs on the platforms. Maybe don't be so hateful towards those poor robots just because they don't know a lot about love.
All right, let's keep going here.
Your items is your connection to the Etsy community. This year, our teams are excited to engage with you in new ways, like in face-to-face meetings around the world. And we're also bringing back seller favorites, like the Etsy Design Awards, which showcases the best of Etsy, and Etsy Up, our free virtual event for sellers that gives you tips and advice for running your shop. There's so much exciting work being done to help keep Etsy the best place for original goods from real people. And there's no one better to tell the world what creativity means today than you. Make sure to check out my full forums post for more details on all of these updates. And thanks for helping Etsy keep commerce human.
All right. Well, it wasn't groundbreaking, his thing, but he's letting you know something's coming. Now, there is a full guide, a post, and Chris has gone through all of that. So we are going to dig deep, and Chris has even got some information already prepared for us to look at. I will say this as well. Stick around, because we also have another clip from another interview that Josh was talking to a board that was explaining what the future of SEO, their black box, and really what it means moving forward. We're going to play that clip for you here in another few minutes, actually several minutes, because we got a bunch of stuff we have to cover, but it'll be a little bit later. So make sure that you stick around for that, because we got another clip that this isn't even on YouTube, what we're going to share with you. Like, we literally found this thing and then we pulled the clip, and it's an audio version, and we'll play that for you. But it's really interesting. Like he kind of gave a couple of little hints there, like they're going to be using more for the seller to kind of see a quality score, and for them to be able to see what moves the needle, what makes you rank better. And a lot of it is geared towards you having better customer service. Maybe your items are getting higher conversions because they are stating exactly what it is and there's no confusion. Your reviews, like there's some different metrics, kind of like the star seller. It's going to be similar to that, I believe. And we're going to dig into that as well. So Chris, what else did you want to talk about here before we move into the actual nitty gritty of really what's happening here? Because that was just a very, very, very high level, like where we were zooming above the clouds on that.
Well, and so I'm laughing because the forum post that accompanied that video is not much more helpful in understanding what actually happened than the video itself is. They give you a few links, and then inside the links, you have to go to other links, which we already did, right? That's what I spent my night doing last night. But based on that video, Scott, what happened yesterday? Like, what do you think that they did yesterday? And what do you think it's a positive or negative thing from a seller perspective?
Well, from a seller perspective, I think it's good news that he said we're listening. So if they are or not, so that kind of gave me hope that they probably are aware of this support issue. So we didn't bring it. He did say we're going to be having ways for teams to be able to even meet face to face. And I'm like, cool. Like, that would be amazing. And the interesting thing is on the clip that we're going to be playing a little bit later, the audio clip, he specifically talks about videos that have been posted on YouTube. So that's interesting because he talks about how people were talking about keyword stuffing on videos. And if we tell people that keywords are what ranking, you're going to find 10 videos of people saying to keyword stuff. And that's not what we want. We'll get to that later. But all I'm saying is they are listening. They're just slow to respond. And I think this is somewhat of a response. I think they're doing it for us. They're doing it for them, obviously. But I think the main thing is they probably had a lot of sellers that are handmade, right? That are handmade sellers that are complaining about AI. They're complaining about pod. They're complaining about those things and they want to satisfy that. But they also know that they need these other types of sellers in order to grow the platform. There's not enough handmade sellers. They're also looking at, to me, they're probably feeling a little bit of pressure from Amazon and from Temu that there's a lot of these platforms now. How do we differentiate? Well, their differentiation is going to be gift mode and really handmade. That's what they're going by. And handmade doesn't necessarily mean it has to be sewn with your hands. It means you could be clicking on, keystrokes and creating a design. And now that's still handmade in a sense. It's just a different type of handmade. So I like what I heard. I just want to know more of the nitty gritty.
It's funny that you said they're slow to respond, because as I was watching that video, all I could think of is that he reminds me of Flash from Zootopia, the sloth that works at the DMV.
Yeah.
Right? Just how he talks, how he moves, and like the speed at which stuff gets implemented, it's at sloth speed. And Scott, I think you touched on something really interesting there at the end where you said, hey, they had a lot of issues where things that weren't really handmade were listed as handmade. And I think just looking at the surface level of the new categories that they have, it makes a lot more sense, right? And they had some other categorization in the background where if you were print on demand and you had your listing set up properly, it showed as handmade with production assistance. But on the front end, it still showed as handmade because they only had those three categories. They had handmade, vintage, and supplies, right? And so it didn't really, print on demand didn't really fit into a space. So they reorganized it to make it easier. One, I think for their AI to figure out where things are categorized and how they should be categorized. Two, for sellers, and three, for buyers. Now a buyer who wants something that is truly handmade should have an easier time finding it, right? Somebody who's looking for something who was curated. And to me, that does open up a little bit more of new products. And I know he said in the video that they're not opening it up to any new products, but some of the things that they're talking about in that curated by category potentially could open up some new opportunities for people, although it would still have to comply with their other rules. But I think it is a lot more clear from a buyer perspective. And I think it makes their terms of service, which we'll start to see the seller handbook articles, Scott, went from hieroglyphics to almost English in the examples that they're using and some of the things that they shared for us, to the point where I could break down all of the changes in like 2 hours, as opposed to when we've looked at the seller handbook in the past, that it's like, okay, let's follow this choose your own adventure to try to figure out what this word means. It's a lot clearer now than it was in the past.
Let me also say this too, before we dig into that. What I did also take away is, and their message now is like making commerce human again, right? Like making it human. So do you think that making it human and having a brand is helping in that quest? I do, right? And what I mean by that is, and we've talked about this, we actually did an Etsy shop audit yesterday, and someone had an avatar that was a cartoon. And we're like, that's not what Etsy wants, right? Etsy wants to see your smiling face. They want to see you're a person that's making it. And not just them, but the customer, they feel wants that. So they're saying, we want to make Etsy human again. Well, how can you make it human? You can create a brand that is cohesive with products that you serve, them with your customers. And you're a real business, not just, I'm going to go ahead and slap up some t-shirts or slap up some mugs. That's not what they want. So if you are doing that, I would say you should stop. If you're not familiar with what we're talking about as far as like building a brand and how you would do that, we actually put together a full guide on how we do it. We've done it in several businesses in Etsy, my wife's shop. That's how we've kind of followed that plan. And it's called the 100K roadmap. If you would like a copy of that, just put 100K in the comments and we'll make sure that we get you a copy of that. All right. I forget how many pages it is, but it's probably like 12, 15 pages, but it takes you through our process to build a brand, from choosing the niche to choosing products to, following up, all of the good practices that he kind of is talking about, right? Like he's saying like, listen, we want to make it human. We want people to feel like they're actually communicating with a brand that is going to be there, that you're going to want to come back to, that you're going to communicate with, that you're going to feel as though you personally can walk into their shop and say, hey, Sally, how are you today? I'm doing great. Great. What do you got new? Right? That's what we're talking about. So if you want a copy of that, 100K, just put that in the comments and we'll make sure that we get you a copy of that. All right. Chris, where do you want to go with this? Do you want to dig into each one of these? Do you want to just do a quick run through and then we'll come back and kind of drill into some of these areas? Where do you want to go?
Yeah, let's do a quick run through of everything that he talked about and then jump into the 3 areas. And I think there's 3 areas, Scott, that you and I found as I was digging through these and voxering you at like 11:30 last night. Hey, I found this thing. I found this thing. I found this thing that we really wanted to focus on. And those 3 areas really are the changes to the categories and how that works, AI and the role that plays in Etsy, and then a massive update that was glazed over completely inside of that video, which is their changes to the image policy, which can have some huge implications for people moving into Q4. And so in that video though, Scott, he talked about the category change. He talked about the new advertising campaign, and he talked about just rolling out some new tools for sellers. Is there anything that I missed in terms of the video itself?
No.
That you heard that I didn't?
No, I think it was pretty basic. He didn't go into great detail, but he did point you to the post that has more of the detail that he says he wrote, but we know that he didn't. One thing I would say though, for their video editor, there's a couple of pauses there. They need to clean that up a little bit. They need to tighten that up. A little bit of a long pause there. He's reading off of a teleprompter. I know that. Didn't do a bad job, but I think there's some slight pauses in there he could have gotten rid of. But anyway, that's just me being critical on the video.
I noticed I noticed the Scott Volker cut in there too. There was a nice jump zoom.
There was. All right, Chris, why don't you take us through it?
Yeah. So Scott, with that being said, I think the first thing that came out of that Etsy update is that Etsy's new categories are going to be changing almost everything in terms of how people see things inside of the Etsy ecosystem. And he talked about the 4 categories in the video, and they talked about them in the blog post, but didn't give any detail as to what these things actually mean. So the first one is made by. This is what used to be handmade, right? It's a finished good that someone makes with tools that they own. And they're very specific about this, right? They're like, is it a tool that you have in your shop? And is it made by you or someone who works for you? If so, then it falls into this category. Designed by, this is what we would typically consider in the past to have been handmade with production assistance, right? The obvious thing here is traditional print-on-demand products. You create a really cool dancing avocado mug. Someone else is producing that finished good. As long as your listing is set up properly, you show up in the designed by category. The other thing that they slotted in there now are anything that is a digital product. So it's anything produced by a third party or sold digitally, because they're saying you designed it. So it will show up as designed by. The third one was sourced by. And this is kind of a weird combination of some of the other things that they allowed on the platform. What they're saying here, Scott, is that source by is an item that requires buyer creativity. So you're giving them something, but the buyer has some input into what the final product looks like. And the obvious things that fall in here are craft supplies, decorations. But the other thing that appears to fall into this category based on their terms of service are customer personalized items. And so if you have a print-on-demand product that would traditionally fall in designed by, if there's customization involved, it appears that that's going to show up in the sourced by category, which doesn't make any sense to me. I get, a weird case where I buy a blank mug and I'm personalizing it for somebody. I sourced the mug, right? It appears, based on all of the reading that I've done so far, that personalized print-on-demand items would fall in here as well, because you're asking the buyer to contribute a piece of the final product, their name, the year, their location, any of those kinds of things, right? And so then the last category is hand-picked, right? And this would be your vintage items, items from nature, which is something that I haven't seen listed out exclusively in Etsy's terms of service before. And I think the example they gave was like flowers or gemstones. I put in here pet rocks just to give you something to laugh at. And then they're also saying select curated collections. So I'm assuming a curated collection of things that are otherwise allowed on the platform might fall into hand-picked buy. And that's cool. And this is what it's going to look like on the front end, right? If you fall into one of those categories, your customers are going to see this on the listing, and you actually will see the category they think you're supposed to be in right now on your listings. They rolled this out yesterday. It's not right for everybody currently, but if you're seeing yourself in the wrong category right now, it could be because you have your listing set up incorrectly, or it could just be because they missed something when they were rolling this out as quickly as possible to people. The real question, though, is what does this mean for buyers and for sellers? And they very specifically said in their breakdown of this is that it's not going to have an impact on the buyer experience yet. And I bolded yet there just for you, Scott, because they're saying, hey, it's not going to impact your placement in search. We know that sellers are going to be really upset by this and that they're going to say, hey, you rolled this out and you screwed up my search. They're saying right now, it's not going to do that. But it will in the future for a few different reasons. One, they're going to have a more thorough search experience. And two, they're going to be adding additional ways of finding and filtering products based on this information. And so if you fall into one of the categories that will require more information moving forward, it would be in your best interest to take the time now to go in and fill in as much of that information as possible. Etsy has said they're not like delisting listings that don't have all of the new information, but when those new filters roll out, you want to be up to speed and be able to do that.
So what you're saying there, though, Chris, before you move on, so what you're saying there is, though, is they're going to somewhat select our categories for us, but do we have the capability of telling Etsy or selecting that in our listing? Is that how it's going to be?
You do not choose the category.
Okay.
How you set up the listing, just like before, Scott, when you went in and you said, I made this, someone in my shop made this, someone else made this.
Yeah.
And that would determine whether you were handmade or handmade with production assistance. They have a very similar workflow for how that looks. And we'll see that here in just a second.
Okay.
I know everybody that's here with us live or that is watching this is saying, hey, what do I need to do right now? And the answer is you don't have to do anything. According to Etsy, everything should be in the correct category. The chances of that happening, very slim. So take a look at least your top selling listings. Make sure that they're where you think they should be after we get through all of the different criteria and all of the different things that you want to think about and that buyers will be seeing on the front end. What you will notice now when you go into edit a listing or create a new listing is expanded listing form options, right? So they are now giving more buttons to click during that initial screen, Scott, where you say, hey, I made this, someone else made this, somebody in my shop made this. Depending on the combination of things that you select there, you will either see the same exact product creation experience or a very different product creation experience. So for at least everything moving forward, you're going to want to pay attention for the next few minutes. And if you have a lot of things handmade or personalized, you may want to go back and at least address the top sellers or the things that are going to be really popular in Q4, because we don't know when they're going to be rolling out that additional data usage in search. And based on what we're hearing from the other things that Josh has been talking about, it's going to be sooner rather than later. So we want to be up to speed as quickly as possible.
Hey, Chris, before you get into that real quick, we had a question come in and I think it's definitely related to this. And that is, does this mean that you are allowed to drop ship?
No.
Okay. So what's the difference? I went and I found it, I curated it, and I sold it. What's the difference between me going into a thrift store, finding really unique stuff and then relisting it versus me going to a drop shipper and finding items and saying, I found them on the internet? What's the difference?
Yeah. So it would still have to comply with their policy. And the only time something like that would be acceptable is if it comes into the vintage policy, right? And so if you go into a thrift store and you find some stuff like the guy that they showed in the video when they were announcing all of this, he's going and looking for unique kitchen vintage pieces, right? That's okay. You cannot go find new products that do not involve creativity. And that's the word, Scott, that popped up over and over again as I was reading through this. Is they're moving away from handmade as the definition to seller created or seller creativity as the thing that determines whether or not something is allowed on the platform. So you can't do anything that is drop shipping. It doesn't mean that you won't get away with it for a little bit, but it is a policy violation. It was a policy violation, and it will remain a policy violation.
Is there anything though in there that specifically states that there's no drop shipping? I mean, they know what drop shipping is, you know, and so have you discovered anything in the documentation that says we do not allow drop shipping?
In those words, no, but they have the different product categories, right? The different types of products
get
that you're
it.
allowed
Yeah.
to create.
Yeah.
And the only exception that you would have to that would be something like vintage, where you're able to buy a fully finished product and do that. They actually do give some examples in the documentation about how much customization is required before it's considered handmade.
Yep.
Right. And so one of the examples that they gave was building a Lego set based on the manufacturer's instructions and selling it on Etsy.
Mm-hmm.
That's not allowed. Right. And so like they're trying to make it as easy as possible to understand. Drop shipping, not okay. Print on demand, okay.
Got it. Okay, cool. Let's move on.
So sellers don't need to do anything right now, but my suggestion would be go in, take a look at your listings, see if any of your products would benefit from filling out the expanded listing form, which we'll see here in just a second. And sellers typically fall into one of three categories, at least for now, right? Before they move into this category structure, people tend to classify themselves either as a print-on-demand seller, a digital seller, or a handmade seller. There's some of the vintage people as well, but this doesn't necessarily apply to them in that way. So for print-on-demand items, Scott, nothing has changed, at least at this point. When I go in to create a listing, you still need to fill it out the same way that we always did, which was who made it, another company or person, when is it made, it's made to order, and then we need to add a production partner. We don't get any of the additional options that we see pop up if we're doing a print-on-demand listing creation.
But Chris, go back. People are they're gonna get stuck here. Who made it? And you would immediately think, well, I made it, right? I didn't print it, but I designed it. So why would I put another company or person when I made it?
So this has always been the way that you were supposed to set these up. And we railed on this last year when the mockup apocalypse happened, because we noticed that people were making that mistake. When people were saying, hey, my listings are being taken down, we don't know why. It turned out that a lot of them were saying, I made it. When Etsy says made it, they literally mean manufactured or created the product itself. If you are a print-on-demand seller, you are creating the design. And I think the new categories that they're rolling out, Scott, designed by, that makes it really obvious to new print-on-demand sellers that they are the designer, not the manufacturer of the product. So for print-on-demand, this is the setup we're going to want to use.
And then you would, if you're using like Printify or something, you would put production partner for this listing, and then you would select the production partner. Now, what if there's not a production partner there? Will it give you like an option like other or something?
Well, so if someone else is making it, you have to list a production partner.
Okay. So there's probably an area there that if it's not listed in the drop down, then you would put in there other, and then you would probably put it in.
Yeah, it's the same way that it's always been inside of that. So if you've created a production partner or listed a production partner in the past, they're in your like quick list. If not, there's I think it even says like add a production partner, right? So that experience for print-on-demand sellers hasn't changed. For digital products, if you're listing a digital product, as soon as you click that button at the top between physical and digital, it will bring you to this new form, which is how is it created? Created by me, compiled by me, meaning I took some existing things, or I created this with an AI generator, right? What does this mean? Does it mean that you didn't create it? No, they just want people to specifically mark that they created something with the help of AI. And they're actually very specific here, Scott. They said with the help of an AI generator.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that when we talk about some of the things that happened with AI and some of the changes that they've made to that policy. But what they're saying here is essentially, if you are that lady from the announcement video that's coloring in things on your iPad, that's created by me. If you are taking things that are existing digital products and creating a new thing, that would be compiled by me. And if you're using AI, they ask that you mark that off. And I think this is really the thing that made them have that whole 30-second rant about it's not going to affect your search results, right? Because they were worried that AI created products, people who are creating them wouldn't select it because they think it's going to negatively impact their SEO. They're very specifically saying it's not going to impact that. Whether it will or won't, we'll have to see. But when they start to roll out the new filters, we're going to want to make sure that these are in the correct category. One, for buyers, and two, because if they're not and somebody reports it, then your listing gets taken down. And if that happens a few times, they take your account away, right? So just list the right thing. And I think the other thing that stood out to me here, Scott, is they said, this doesn't change what buyers are seeing right now, right? You gotta look at the fine print with Etsy. You know, it's going to be used to improve the experience in the future. And we know, based on the beta search analytics report, that Etsy can either roll things out and have things implemented within 3 months, or it can be in beta for the next 9 years, and we may never see the results of it. But we want to make sure that we're selecting the right things here. Digital products, Scott, any questions there? Is that fairly straightforward?
It's fairly straightforward. I did want to ask who's here watching us, whether it's live or on the replay. Curious, just a little fun question here. How many of you are using, or who is using AI right now in their design work? I'm just curious, or in any type of the final product, are you using AI to generate components or to help you in your design efforts or in your product creation efforts? I'm just curious. Drop that in the comments. That's it, Chris. You can move on.
Yeah. So somebody just said, okay, are you telling me that if I use AI, I have to select AI? Yes. Right. Like,
yeah,
set
you do
up the listing correctly. And so if you used AI, did you create the product? Yes. Right. If it's entirely generated by AI, meaning you're selling wall art generated by AI or something like that, then go ahead. But the very specific thing that they have in here, Scott, is it's help from. So to me, and I want your opinion on this, if we're using AI to create elements, would it fall into the with an AI generator category?
What was the last part? I didn't hear you.
So to select the with an AI generator button, it says it's created with the help of an AI generator.
Yeah.
So if we're creating the entire thing with AI, obviously that falls into that category. But if we're using AI created elements, in your mind, does it still fall into that category?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah. Cause you've used it, right? It's
right.
You know, it's with the help. AI was part of it. So you had a collaborator that was working with you that day. You're going to put down that collaborator, AI, you know. Now, the interesting thing is they're asking for that because they know that that sometimes can be a deterrent. So what they want to do is they're trying to be transparent. But you notice they're not putting on there like, was this made in Canva, you know, or was this made with Photoshop? Or they're not asking any of that stuff. They're more or less, that falls under it was designed by, but they're putting this in here because they know it's a big discussion amongst sellers and amongst people buying stuff. So it's just a way for them to be more transparent. But I think it's interesting that they're putting that right out there because it's here and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, I think if I compiled a bunch of elements, then I'd probably put compiled. If I created the whole thing with AI, I'd probably put created with the help of an AI generator. But I can see the argument either way. That's something I haven't seen a lot of clarification on. But I'm generally an err on the side of caution type of person, so I'd say with an AI generator in most of those cases. Scott, handmade. This is where stuff gets messy, I guess is the thing, because we're seeing a lot more options start to pop up. The first question that they are asking and what they're trying to find out from handmade sellers is how things are produced. And then they ask us essentially, how handmade is it? Right. And so they're saying, was it made from scratch? Did you buy parts and put it together? You altered it. So you took a blank t-shirt and printed something on it or sewed something on it. You curated a purchased set of goods. And this is where that curation comes in. Right. So spa kits, birthday baskets, all of those things would fall under curated sets of goods or a natural material. And this is where I got the pet rock joke from, right? They're saying they find or cultivate items from nature, be it flowers or gems or shells, etc. Right. So not quite sure how that is considered handmade. I would typically consider that to be a supply potentially. And it looks like they're going to categorize it that way on the front end, but the listing form, since they don't let you pick category, they sort it out based on your answers to these questions. So then they're saying, how handmade is it, Scott?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hold on one second. Because we get questions coming in when you're doing that stuff. So I just want to make sure that we cover this stuff while it's here, because we're going to lose it. I could actually star these, I guess. But the question on the last one was, go back to the last screen. It was, where is it now? Now I lost it. Crud. Yeah. So I just
there were two of them. Year of the Dragon said, if I'm using Jiffy shirts and making designs that I sublimate the image onto, does that fall into the compiled by me category? And again, you aren't selecting the category. So all you have to think about is where it makes the most sense. My guess is that would fall into the designed by me or created by me category. And what you would be selecting here is, okay, you're altering something. In your case, I guess that would be creating from purchase parts, right? You're not sewing the t-shirt. So you would select purchasing from purchase parts, right? And the example that they give you is a denim jacket with patches sewn on. That to me is very similar to a t-shirt.
Okay. Yeah, I did find it. So the question was more or less, we showed for digital products showing if it was used with AI, but is that same setting or that same thing for print on demand or for regular products? It's only for digital?
For now.
Okay.
So when I went to set up the way you would traditionally set up a print on demand product, that option doesn't show up currently. It does show up as soon as you select digital. Those are the options that came up. So if you're setting up what would traditionally be a handmade product, this is what you see. So I made this or someone from my shop made this and it's a physical product. These are then the options that come up. So for Year of the Dragon, who's saying, hey, I'm taking a jacket and ironing something onto it, or I'm creating a t-shirt from a pre-purchased t-shirt, that would fall into this category, right? Because you are making it. You're not designing it, but you're making it. And so then you would have to look at it's assembled from purchase parts, or it's an item that my shop alters, right? If you're selling seashells, then you're selling a natural material. And if you're curating things, meaning you're making gift baskets, you have a collection of vintage things that you're selling, that would fall into the curation categories. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. We had this come in here from this guy here. And it says, pod sellers must write in the description AI was used. Did you see any documentation that you have to state that?
No, but you might as well, right? In the description. And so here's the thing. If they're going to require it, they'd make it part of that creation process.
Right.
They may still be doing that. We're just looking at what has rolled out so far. And we'll actually, here in a few minutes, take a look at the AI creation policy.
Okay,
so
cool. Yeah,
the first step, if you're selling a non-POD item, that's a physical item, they're asking you, how is it produced? Is it something you're producing fully, in part? Is it seashells, right? What is it? And then go from there. And so then we're saying, okay, how handmade is it, right? So what tools did you use to do this? And this is where we start to see AI pop up again. And it's one of the things for me that was interesting, because for print on demand, it wasn't showing up. And this is what makes me think that it must be disclosed moving forward for everything else, but it just wasn't an option yet, right? So we're seeing an AI generator for handmade. This option is not showing up for me currently if I'm doing print on demand. And I'm curious why that is, if they're requiring it everywhere else. And it appears from some of the stuff that we've read that they're requiring it, there just wasn't a way to do it other than manually writing it in the description for print on demand items. So hopefully they'll fix that. But if you're telling them it's handmade, they're saying, okay, are you using handheld tools? Are you using, an old 2-person saw to saw down that tree? Are you using computerized tools? Are you using an AI generator? Or are you just freewheeling it? You just kicking that tree till it falls over? That would be the no, I don't use tools section there. So fairly straightforward. Is it handmade? How handmade is it? And then what are you using to create it? Again, I'm not seeing that on the print on demand side. I am seeing that for what would traditionally be on the straight up handmade side. So hopefully they're going to resolve that issue here over the next few days.
Okay. All right. Okay. So yes, we will get into some stuff that was talked about with the mock-up. Everyone's asking about the images. Did they discuss anything in there about the images? And the answer is they did. So we're going to dig into that stuff here in a second. Chris, before we do, let's answer a few of these questions. Guys, stick around because we've got more to cover. I mean, this is going to be, we're going to get into some SEO stuff too that was discussed in another audio clip that we found that I want to say was leaked because I'm not necessarily sure that it was intended to be listened to by us. Not that it really matters, but it does give us some insight that wasn't necessarily for us to hear. So we're going to cover that here in a little bit too. But we are going to get into like what was talked about as far as mockups. Did they address that? They actually did. So we're going to get into that stuff here in a second. But Chris, I've got a few of these starred. I love this too. I just want to throw this out here. Bailey says, can we keep Etsy seller support human too then? I agree. Yeah, I think we should. All right. Okay. Here's one. If I print my posters or my own posters, would it be classed as made by or designed by?
So they got their own printer.
They got their own printer.
You don't select the category. You just tell Etsy how handmade something is and they do it. What you would be doing, since you're not using a production partner to create the poster, you would be selecting made by me. And then you tell them that you used an AI tool, you used Photoshop, whatever it is. They would likely classify you based on these definitions as made by, because you are making the finished product. And I think that's the biggest distinction that people need to understand. If you are creating the fully finished product and shipping it to the customer, that is made by. Anything short of that will fall into one of the other categories.
Art by Flynn. So an original painting would be made from scratch?
Yep.
Yeah, I would think so, for sure. Let's see here. Then what does a painter of an original painting listed as? I buy the canvas and paint. Is that from scratch or not? Yes, we just answered that. It's from scratch.
Yeah, so we would come in here, and once we select that it's made by me or made from someone in my shop, it's made from scratch, right? Raw or basic craft materials, fabric, clay, resin, glass, yada yada yada, right? So to me, that would be made by scratch because you're not putting it together, you're not gluing stuff on the canvas that you bought other places. It is your own creative work.
Okay, and then this one here. So it says, wait, if I use AI to help brainstorm an idea or bounce ideas off of it, and then I make the design in Canva myself or Adobe, do I have to put in it was made with AI?
No, because
you really didn't use, you didn't use the components. You just came up with ideas, which also brings up another interesting question. They're asking about the product because that's really their main concern. But some people in the comments had asked, well, what if I use AI to help write my descriptions or my titles? Do I need to tell them that? At this point, no, you don't, because all you're using the AI to do is to help you come up with a better title or a better description. They don't need you to put in there, this description was created with AI. Like, you don't need that. Because it's not the end result that someone is buying. It's not the product. What they're saying is because there is now more than just someone that is doing pottery or doing leather works, they have to find a way to still offer these products, but then also show the customer that something is truly made by this person by hand, or someone has designed it, or they bought components and put it together, or they used AI. So they're just doing this to try to be as clear as possible and transparent as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the questions that keeps popping up is about AI, right? And disclosing it in your description, which is something they're talking about, not specifically in terms of print on demand, which I think was the question that we got earlier. But if you're using AI, you have to mark it as AI. They give you that option for everything except for print on demand right now. So the question would be, do I have to mark it and also write it in the description? That seems dumb, right? And so to me, disclosing it in the description would be choosing the right options in the back end and then going from there. If you want to also include it in the description, you can. And if we want to be super clear and super on the right side of everything, then we could say, hey, I designed this with the help of DALL-E 3 or whatever.
Yeah. This one here, Crafty Needleworks Tara. What's up, Tara? I'm still confused. Are they saying my beaded scissor fobs are not handmade because I purchased beads and string?
No, it would be handmade, but it would probably be, assembled?
Assembled.
Right?
Yeah, I think that it would be assembled.
Yeah, assembled from purchased parts, right? So unless you made the scissors, then you purchased the scissors and you purchased the beads and you made it from purchased parts.
And
so
I
if
think
you're buying all the components.
I think the word assembled could be better because assembled, meaning you put it together with your hands. Right? Assembled doesn't really give it that same feel. And I think that's what can be confusing for someone that's like, well, wait a minute. This is original. I took the beads and glued them on myself. Right? But what they're saying is you still purchased parts to create this thing. You didn't take, well, you could argue and say you bought clay, right? I mean, you had to buy clay to make the pottery, the mug. So I think we could get a little in the weeds there. I don't think we need to, but in your case, it's assembled from purchase parts.
Yeah. And I think what they're really getting at here, and they use this throughout the new handbook articles, is seller creativity, right? So did you take a raw material, something that no one else has sold before, right, as a finished good? Scissors are a finished good. Beads are a finished good, right? And make it from scratch. So did you make the beads Or did you buy beads and buy scissors and assemble that together? And I think the thing that makes this more confusing is that they added an extra option here, Scott,
Yeah.
where they said it's assembled from purchased parts or it's something you alter, because anything that you do alterations to would also be assembled from purchased parts.
Right.
But they said, hey, there's two different kind of groups of people here. Let's try to make this as clear as possible. And in doing that, I think at least up front, they created a little bit of extra confusion where they didn't need to.
Yeah. All right, one more, and then we're gonna get into the mock-up stuff here. What about designs you license, but then you manufacture it on the product yourself?
So that gets into a really interesting area where they don't want you using someone else's design, period. Even if you have the rights to it, you shouldn't be listing an unmodified design, because that's not considered to be creativity. Right. So if you're licensing an element, that's one thing. But if you're taking a Creative Fabrica pre-done design, that's not okay.
Yeah.
And you should not be using that at this point. Now, again, like if you're taking fabric that has resale rights and turning that into a pillow, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
If you're modifying it in some way that it's not the same finished good, then that's okay. They do not want you going in and using someone else's thing and putting it on a t-shirt and saying, hey, I bought the license to it. That's fine. They don't consider that to be creativity. And that's why they keep going back to that word instead of handmade. Now they're using creativity.
Yep. No, that makes sense. And I think that could be confusing. And just to make it super clear, if you're buying, like you said, Chris, that, Creative Fabrica, it is Fabrica, by the way, guys. It's not Fabrica, although that's what everyone calls it. And the reason why I know is because I went to their YouTube channel and I listened to how they said it, and it's not Fabrica. I always thought I was saying it wrong because I say everything wrong, but I wasn't saying that one wrong. Chris, next time you take a sip, though, turn your mug. I want to see the dancing avocado, not love Chris. Yeah, there you go. Just the little things. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But anyway, yeah. So that's, I think, Chris, you explained that very well. All right, let's move on. And let me go ahead and let's set this thing up. Let me get rid of that. Where is that? Chris, is that comment? There it goes. All right, cool. All right. So with the big announcement that Etsy had made with all of this breaking news, one of the components was, and one of the things that was addressed is mockups. And we all know that there was this big mockup debate, and people were saying that your accounts were getting suspended and shut down because you were using a third-party mockup. It wasn't the actual product. And you could only use the company's, the print-on-demand company that you're using's, image. And that was addressed in this big update. And this, there's a lot of other things that were discussed, but one of them was the mockups thing. And I've got Chris Schaefer to explain everything, because that's what Chris does, is he gets into the weeds and he figures out what exactly does this all mean. And Chris, I'm curious, what was said and what does it mean? Is there an issue with people using third-party mockups? Like, what's going to happen here in the future?
Scott, I thought we settled this months ago, but I'm now confident that we can say that the Etsy mockup drama is settled once and for all, and it's written in almost plain English. And so as a part of all of these changes, they rolled out changes to the image policy. And Scott, you may remember this thumbnail, because
I do.
Despite setting aside the way that you and I both say niche, which, by the way, niche or niche, both acceptable in the English language before anybody runs down to the comments, right? The second most hot take that we've ever had on anything was when we reported our conversation with Etsy's legal team, clarifying their image policy, saying, hey, when you have an item made with a production partner, you have to use the production partner's mockup. We said that doesn't make sense. If you read through the rest of this, the literal words on the page don't make sense. And we reached out to their legal team when there was a bunch of AI takedowns. I think it was last October. It was like 8 or 9 months ago, as of the time of recording this video. And their legal team got back to us and they said, no, we don't literally mean you have to use the production partner's mockup. What we mean is that you have to use a mockup that is either from the production partner or something that represents the finished product that you have the rights to use. And at the time, and even still to this day, we get comments on that video saying that's not what the policy says. We said, we know, that's why we asked for clarification on it, right? Turns out, as part of this giant overhaul of the Etsy seller handbook, they rolled out a new image policy. And it's almost this time written in English that most people can understand. So their default, Scott, is to use original photos. To me, and I think to you, that means take some pictures, right? These photos should showcase the actual finished product that you made, designed, handpicked, or sourced by accurately portraying the condition, quality, and quantity of your items. You're going to help build trust with buyers. And I know I just said we were vindicated on the Etsy mockup apocalypse, and this doesn't say anything about it. Well, if we scroll down the page a little bit, we get into a giant section that they call exceptions, right? And they're saying in certain situations, you can't use an original photo. And something like that would be if you're using an item that comes from a production partner, right? Which print-on-demand products come from a production partner. What they're saying is for items that come from a production partner, when you work with them, you can use something that's provided from them, or you can use an item that illustrates that, right? So you can use a computer-generated mockup as long as it accurately represents the product. The interesting thing here, and where I wanted to get your take before we talk through it a little bit, is where they're talking about personalized or customized items. And we said in when we were talking about the different categories that Etsy rolled out, that customized items, for whatever reason, fall into a different category than the rest of print on demand. And it appears that they have a few different rules. So I want you to read or to listen to me read through this really quick. And they're saying for personalized or customized items. So beautiful avocado mug, put my name on it, right? Personalized item. For personalized or customized items, your first image must feature a finished, customized item similar to what buyers will receive. This helps buyers visualize what their custom-made item will look like when it's completed. It is prohibited to use a photo, a blank product, or a mock-up with placeholder text as the main image. Computer-generated mock-ups may be used in additional listing images to showcase how you can customize it. Just make sure that your first image is the real deal. If you would like to use a buyer's review photo as a listing image, just ask the buyer, and as long as they give you permission, that's fine. So for regular print-on-demand stuff, right, if we're just printing avocado mugs, very straightforward. We can use mockups. For customized things, when you read through this, does it sound like you can use mockups at all on personalized items?
No, to me, it's like that is confusing though, because like you just said, right? Like if you're doing your avocado mug, right? Custom or personalized to me would be custom, right? And so from what you just said to me sounds like I can't use a mock-up, but if I don't personalize it and create it custom, I can. Is that correct?
So what they're saying is if you're printing this side, you absolutely can. What I see in this, and I've changed my opinion on this since I read it, and I've already sent an email to Etsy's legal team because the entire rest of this is very straightforward, right? If it's a handmade product, you got to use a picture. If it's not a handmade product and it's being printed on demand without buyer intervention, right? Without buyer creativity, you can use a mock-up. What they're saying here appears to say that you can't use a mock-up until you reread it. So the second time I read this, it says you can't use a blank product or a mock-up with placeholder text because what they're after here is a finished good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
They don't want it to say your text here with a giant white block around it. They want to see Chris. Now, given that it's coming from a production partner, I don't understand why the rest of this wouldn't apply.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious what people think in the comments. But to me, you can use a mock-up, right? As long as it's of the finished product and you're not using a placeholder text. To me, it doesn't make any sense to write placeholder text mock-up instead of just mock-up. If they were going to disallow it, they would have just gotten rid of the first portion of that and then said, for example, something that says your text here or a digitally created image of the finished product. If we want to be super safe, then reach out to some buyers or order a sample that is customized. But based on reading through that and hearing me explain that, what are your thoughts on for personalized or custom products? Well, everybody right now is freaking out because they think they have to go change all of this.
Yeah. No, what I'm hearing is they don't want it to be a generic blank mug that says this is what you're going to get. They want you to show them an example. So like they said, now that you're reading it back, you can take someone that purchased it and they're holding up their mug going like, I love this. You can use that. Even though it says love Chris or love Sally or love whatever, right? It's been personalized. What they're going to do is they are going to envision their name or their customization there. But what they're saying is they don't want it to be here and saying your text here. Like that doesn't represent what the finished product would look like to a customer. So that's what I'm taking away from it. And I think that makes sense because they just want you as a customer to be able to see something that's finished. That's what they're saying.
That is my interpretation as well. That is not the interpretation of a lot of people in the forums right now. And that's why I reached out to Etsy League. And I said, look, it's almost written in English this time, right? And if we can clarify one sentence in that terms, in the image policy, then the entire rest of the thing makes perfect sense. But it doesn't make sense to call out a specific example to apply to the whole category of things. And if we read through it again, Scott, we will see, right? Okay. When you're working with production partners, the requirement for listing photos vary depending on the item. If you design a unique item, production partner manufactures it, you have to use a real photo of the physical end product. So if you're using a production partner to create furniture or a book, they want that. If it's an original design, so it falls into the designed by category, and you created the design and it's being printed on a base item. So an item that production partner has, they're not assembling it. They're just printing it. So a t-shirt or a mug, oh my God, they used real world examples. You can use a stock mockup to illustrate the end buyers will receive. Buyer personalized items must follow the guidelines laid out above, right? And so then you go, okay, it's a custom item. I can't use a mockup. What they're saying is you can't use a mockup placeholder as the main image. And so
just
for me,
a blank mockup. So like if you bought a mockup and it just had the t-shirt and it just said your text here, they don't want that. So like, I have one here. Yeah. So this, I just want to clarify this. So it's not realistic to have to purchase all your listings to photograph. They're not saying that. What they're saying is you can, at least this is how we're interpreting it, right? You can use a third-party mockup, but you have to show it as it's a finished product, meaning they don't want it to say your text here. They want it to say whatever it's going to be customized or personalized. That's all they're saying. If your finished product is represented in that image, then I don't see a problem in it because you're showing what the product is going to look like, even though it's not your name in it, it's someone else's name, and they're seeing it being personalized. And they're saying you can use a third party as long as it's finished. That's what they're saying. At least that's what I'm taking from it, Chris.
That's my interpretation as well. And I'm over here trying to pull up an example of this. And I'm going to see if I can share my screen here really fast, Scott. I just typed in custom mug, right? So here, let me pull this up. How do I share a screen? It's almost like I've done this before. Right. Oh, I pulled up two of them. That's why I can't figure out which one I want to show. Right. So if we're looking at this, I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit bigger for everybody. This has a mockup, right? Very clearly a mockup. This is a placeholder mockup. It says your photo or logo here, front and back.
Right.
You can still use this as a supporting image. They just don't want this to be the main image. What they would want, and I don't know why it's not letting me pick an image, but what they want is they want you to use something that has somebody's actual finished goods on it. So if this is my listing,
right,
I would be freaking out right now.
Yeah.
Right. I would be going in and immediately creating a mockup that truly shows this. If we go back to custom mug, if it will let me do that. Right. None of these would be allowed. You have to show a finished product. This last one on the right here, Scott, where it says your photo here and shows the finished product. Are you seeing that?
Yep.
That would be allowed because it's showing the finished product, right?
Okay.
So that,
but that one there, Chris, though, the one with the couple walking with the dog, like down a little ways there, like, no, well, that one too. And it says your photo and text here. That's what they're saying. That's not allowed. They don't want that. They want it to say, okay, your photo, you don't need to put your photo, right? Because people are going to be going there. Your title is going to say custom mug with your photo, right? And in there, it's going to have that. And it's going to say your text there. And it's going to say, Volker family vacation 2024, right? And you're going to put that in there, even though the person that's buying its name isn't Volker, but you're showing a finished product. You don't want to put this stuff in there that's descriptive, is what they're saying.
Yeah. They always want to see, and this is the simple test, right? They always want to see the finished product.
That's it.
If we read through that image policy, every little this and that they're talking about says the finished product, right? So when they're talking about production partners, if they are making the entire thing, you're using a production partner to build a chair, they want a photo of the finished product. If you are showing them what this t-shirt will look like with Happy Birthday Chris printed on it, it needs to say Happy Birthday Chris printed on it. If you're just saying happy birthday and then you have a dog on it, that's what they want to see. They want the customer to see exactly what they will get. And I think the reason for that makes a lot of sense. It's because it's easier for people to visualize. It doesn't mean you can't use that in the supporting images. And they actually even say that you can continue to use that in the supporting images. They just don't want you using that as the main image.
Right. So here, I want to clarify. So Absolute Freedom says, I don't understand. It still shows the finished product, even if it says custom text. No, it doesn't. Is your image going, is your product going to say custom text when that customer gets it? No, it's going to say the custom text. So you have to put the custom text. Then there's a follow-up here and it says, what if you put it in a fictitious name on the mug? Great. Fine. It's showing the finished product. It's not showing, imagine your text here, right? Like, it's not like they don't want you to imagine. They want you to see a finished product, plain and simple.
Yeah. And it makes the search results a lot more uniform, right? If you have people putting white blocks, which is the example that I see all the time, right? They're like, it's a t-shirt and then they have a white block and it says your name here, right? Yeah. It looks like hot garbage, first of all. And second of all, it doesn't give people an understanding of what it actually is. Now, Scott, if you have a bunch of personalized listings right now, are you worried about that change to the terms of service?
Yeah, because it's clear. If your images right now, if what you're saying, Chris, it's saying in there custom text here, whatever, I would be nervous, and I'd be in there updating those.
That's not something your wife does in her shop, right?
No. There's not, we've never put insert your text here or your main image here or your family name here. It's going to have someone's name, right? It's going to have someone's name to represent what it would look like. To me, that just seems like common sense. Like, I would want to, if I'm going, and I don't want to imagine what someone's text is going to look like. I want to see, like, here's a great example. We were photographers back in the day. If I had a picture up there and it said your family picture here, but there was no family picture, it wouldn't make you want to buy. But if I show you a family that we shot 3 weeks ago and you're like, oh, what a beautiful family, we want our family picture taken, then yes. You know, it's like,
put your photo in the frame.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
right.
It doesn't make any sense.
You have to be, they want you to imagine what it's like to be done. That's it.
Yeah.
I think we can move on from this, Chris.
If you want to be hyper vigilant about it while we're waiting for a little bit of clarification on the only thing I found that wasn't very clear.
Yeah.
Because I had to read it twice, because the first time I read it, I was like, oh my God, they're getting rid of that. And then I read it, you read further down and they're like, here's all the reasons you can use it as long as it doesn't do this, 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 or this. It makes sense that they would still allow it. Do we want some clarification on it? Yes. Are we worried about it as sellers who use mock-ups of finished products? No. Right? So print on demand, if you're selling a fully finished design, mock-ups are no problem. If you are selling a customer personalized thing, if you're going to use a mock-up, make sure that it has a finished thing on it. It doesn't say your text here or placeholder images, right? It says Chris on it and it doesn't say your name here. You should be good to go. If you want to be very, very careful with it, then buy a sample of a finished one. Now, Scott, I guarantee you that some Etsy sellers are going to get real snarky real quickly and start creating finished goods and real photos that say your name here as the printed name. Not something that I would do, right? Just type in your own name or type in somebody else's name and go from there. But really, at the end of the day, the changes to the image policy make this a lot more straightforward for people to understand. And I guess it's not going to share my screen anymore. There we go. Right? And it really boils down to a few different things for sellers. First, if you're selling print on demand, mock-ups are allowed. If you're selling digital products, mock-ups are allowed. Custom products are a little bit different than they used to be, and we have to be a little bit more careful. Custom products must feature an image of the finished product, right? You can interpret that however you want, the way that makes sense based on reading their image policy, which is very clearly written now. If it's a mock-up of a finished product, that is fine. You cannot use placeholder text for anything at this point in a main image. It appears based on that reading that you could still put it in a supporting image to give people an idea of exactly where it's going to go if they can't figure that out from the main image. And mockups are totally okay to be used for supporting images. The other thing, and we glazed over this pretty quickly, is if you want to use a real photo, so you put up that mockup until you get somebody to buy one, all you have to do, reach out to the customer, you get their permission, you can use customer submitted images perfectly well in your listing. That's another thing you and I have talked about in the past that people said, oh my God, you can't do that. Etsy now is very specifically saying, as long as you have permission, that's totally cool.
Yep. So is that the end of the mock-up debate, Chris?
Mock-up apocalypse should be over as long as you're showing an image of the finished product and you own the rights to the image, right? So you purchased the mock-up that truly represents the finished product, or you're taking a picture of the finished product, or you got a customer to send you a picture that they gave you permission to use. If you're doing any of those three things, you're good to go.
Cool. All right. And Chris, I just want to say for reference, you and I talked earlier. I just want to say this went longer than we had thought.
Yeah, I thought you were just going to have me run through everything and then ask me questions, but we should know that doesn't work.
But I told you, I know that's not how we operate. I mean, look where we're at. Look where we're at in our little outline that we got going on. We're not even on the second one yet. All right. Okay, you want to answer these now? I got a bunch starred too. I mean, we could spend another 30 minutes on just answering questions.
I don't think buyers care about this. Clearly buyers care about this, right? Or Etsy wouldn't be doing it. Etsy doesn't necessarily care, but they have surveyed buyers, they've surveyed sellers, and these are the things that they're choosing to address. And I think it makes sense because the images or videos are the only chance you have to interact with that product.
All right, what do we got next, Chris? We still got to get to the SEO thing that we promised in the beginning. So what do we got next?
Yeah, let's roll through the AI product designs.
Ooh,
Scott,
that's a good one.
You want to kick that one off for us?
Yeah, sure. So once again, with the latest breaking news that Etsy had announced, well, one of those things was AI. And I know that a lot of people want some clarification on what's happening with AI. Can we still use AI? What do we list our products as if we are using AI? And well, Chris Schaefer is going to distill it down and really answer some of those questions. Chris, what does it mean now, right now? What has been said from Etsy in their documentation about what we can and can't do using AI?
Well, Scott, it's about time they finally came out and finally addressed AI for product designs and what their policy actually is. You know, they had a little bit of a written policy. There was a lot of rumor and speculation. And then we actually did a video a little while ago. Right here is Etsy approving AI. And that came from our buddy Josh, the CEO. He sat down and did an interview where he said, yeah, it's perfectly fine. And unfortunately, most Etsy sellers still think of AI as one of two things, right? Either an evil spider robot that's coming for us all, or Wall-E, the most helpful thing ever. And Etsy here appears to have done a good job of, for lack of a better term, splitting the baby and saying, hey, look, we're not just going to blanketly approve it like it sounded like Josh was saying. We are going to have a few guidelines for sellers. The two biggest ones are that Etsy is allowed for creating products as long as when we're going through the product creation process in the Etsy backend, we mark things correctly. And if you guys didn't know, they changed all of the categories and they're expanding the listing form. Right now, it still isn't showing up on print on demand, but it's showing up in handmade and it's showing up in, what was the other one that we were talking about? The other category, digital products. So handmade and digital, it should be rolling out to print on demand because it doesn't make any sense that that option wouldn't be there. And it takes care of the only requirement that they have, which is telling people that you did it with AI, right? And so they're saying you can create elements, products, or customizations with AI as long as you are the person that is prompt engineering or typing the prompt in. Scott, we talked a lot today and we talked a lot in this update about creativity. This is the distinction they are making. They are saying, if you are the one typing in the prompt, it still requires your creativity. And I think regardless of your interpretation of whether AI is good or bad in general, you would agree that you could type in a prompt. Somebody could say,
Yeah.
create me a dog.
Yep.
And the two prompts that we type in, because we don't have the same life experiences, we're going to get two big differences in those sets of results. And they're saying,
Sure.
if it's something that involves seller creativity in this case, then it's okay. So if you're creating an element, that's fine. If you're creating a full design, that's okay, as long as you're marking it when you're creating the listing. Again, I've only seen that mark show up, that little checkbox show up for handmade and for digital products right now. When you go to set up a product as print on demand, not there yet, but it should be. One big thing that we've seen people doing that is explicitly not allowed, and Scott, it's because it fails the creativity test, is selling prompts or bundles of prompts. So they're saying, if you type something into an AI generator, cool. If you're telling other people what to type into an AI generator, not cool. Why? Not creative. It eliminates the creative element because you're telling somebody what to type in. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay. So I'm curious on that because I've seen those out there where it's like you can buy, a bundle of prompts for writing blog posts, let's just say, right? Or you can create, a list of prompts to create better Etsy listings, right? Because they're your prompts. You created them, right? You came up with the prompts. So it's interesting that you can't do that. The other thing I would think is like, because people have sold, they've sold templates that they've created with AI, right? It's still it's a component. So that's I'm not quite sure I agree. I'm not a huge fan of like selling even like courses and stuff on Etsy. I'm not sure that it's the place. Yes, you created the thing. I mean, Chris, you and I could take, and we could create something to put up on Etsy for a training or something like that, how to have better SEO, like whatever. I just don't know it's the place for it. But from what you're saying is they're not allowing you to use or to sell prompts that you created because it's not creative.
It's not creative for the other person. Right. And so they're saying anything that was created by your creativity, the end result of that. So your mock-up that you created, right? You mentioned like a photo template, right?
Yep.
That would be okay because you created that with the assistance of AI. They don't want you putting together a bunch of prompts that you used to create that, bundling those and selling those to have other people then go create essentially the same thing.
Oh,
and I think their argument there is that if everybody's using the same prompt, you're going to get closer and closer results. So it's going to limit the creativity in the AI space. And their argument is if they told Scott, if Etsy came to you, Josh Silverman came to you and said, Chris and Scott, I need you to go to Midjourney or DALL-E right now and create me a dog. And that's going to be the new mascot of Etsy. You would type in one thing. You might just type in dog. And I might type in, dog flying to pick up handmade products from Etsy sellers. And I'm going to get a totally separate set of results from you. Yeah. That seems to be the thing that they're looking at is what is the finished product.
Right.
And that's all that they want. The obvious other thing that they excluded is anything otherwise created by AI that violates their policies, like nudity, right? So biggest thing is you can't sell the thing that got you the result, but you can sell the result. And it's perfectly fine to use as long as you're disclosing it in your product listing. Now, the way that they typically talk about that, when they typically say disclose, it means mark it off in the thing. Right now, because you can't do it for print on demand as of the time of recording this, you might want to just write it at the bottom of your product description or something like that. But for any other product type, whether it's a digital product or any of the new, variations of handmade, checking that box should be enough to indicate that it was made with, by, or with the assistance of AI.
So then, Chris, answer this for me to wrap this up with a nice little bow. What does it mean right now for AI? It sounds like you're telling me that it's okay. We can use AI, but we have to disclose it. And we also have to, basically we can use the AI, but we can't sell prompts for AI. Like, so what is the big takeaway here for us as sellers? Like, how can we use AI? Should we be using AI if we want to? Give me what are we supposed to do?
Yeah. So if you're cool with using AI, it is perfectly acceptable on Etsy with a few basic ground rules. First, you have to sell the result. So they don't want you selling the prompt itself, the thing you typed in to get that fancy dog picture. You can't bundle a bunch of those together and sell that on Etsy because that isn't something that they consider to be creative, which seems to be the new benchmark that they are using. But if you're using it to create a finished design, right? So you're creating a bull running through a city and you're going to sell that as wall art, that's okay. If you're using it to create the new flying dog Etsy logo, that's fine if you use it to create part of or the entire product. They don't want you creating anything that isn't otherwise is a violation of their policy. And the thing they specifically call out is like nudity or adult material, right? And they don't want you selling the things that would get people the same results that you've already gotten out of an AI generator. So they don't let you sell prompts. If you're not selling prompts, you're not selling things that otherwise violate their terms of service. They are allowing you to sell either a finished design or any elements that you create with AI, as long as you're indicating that part or that entire design was created with AI assistance during the listing creation process.
Beautiful. All right, cool. So a lot there. We still have to cover the SEO black box little leaked audio that we discovered, and we're going to break that down. Got more to come. We've got a bunch of questions. Chris, did you want to recap kind of everything that we just discussed as far as the breaking news and like the main components? And actually, while you do that, I'm going to take a little break. I got to go to the restroom real quick. I drank a whole bunch of water, and Scotty got to go potty.
Well, that's terrifying.
Yes. So why don't we do that? Why don't we give them a quick recap? And as far as like what it means. So, I mean, I can set it up for you. So this way here, make sure that we get everything covered. So Chris, with all of the updates, the breaking news, what does this mean? If you could distill it all down, what are the main takeaways that a seller, us, need to know, and we need to follow the rules? Like, what does it mean? If you could give us a recap, so this way here, we know exactly what it means and also how it's going to either benefit us or it's going to affect us moving forward.
Absolutely. So, Scott, Etsy dropped a bomb this week when they came out and they said, hey, we're making a bunch of changes to the terms of service. We're going to be changing a lot of things. And not only are we changing a lot of things, they're effective today, right? So they're already rolling out. And the first big thing is that instead of it just being handmade, vintage, or supplies, they now have a new category structure. And just like before, you didn't really pick the category that you fall into. They're going to assign you to one of 4 new categories based on whether or not you created the entire product, or you just created parts of the product, or if you're just sourcing a raw ingredient. And so what they're going to ask you during that listing creation process are the same questions that they asked in the past, but they're also going to be including a few new questions depending on what your answers are. And so what they're looking for is, did you create the product? Did you design the product? Did you create a collection, or did you select the product? And go from there. And so essentially what we're looking at is, did you make it? How much did you make of it? And then, is it something that somebody would be able to find elsewhere, right? So is it print on demand? That will fall in one category. Is it custom? That will fall in another category. Or is it truly handmade? They're getting rid of those labels entirely and moving forward with the new category system. The second big thing was a little bit of vindication for us here at the Brand Creators channel, where they changed the image policy and made it almost as clear and readable as a company like Etsy can do. They rolled out that new image policy, and they clarified that mockups are usable in a few circumstances. So if you are creating the finished product, you need to use a final photo of the product. If your production partner is creating a product from scratch, so they're assembling a piece of furniture, you also need to use a real image for that as well. If you're using a traditional print on demand product, so we design this awesome dancing avocado mug, we can use a mock-up for that. And if we're using customization or personalization, they want us to use either a real photo or a mock-up that represents the final look of the product. They also wanted to make it very clear that they don't want any mock-ups being used, and they applied it to the personalized side of things, but it would apply, I guess, to the traditional print on demand, although I'm not sure how you would do that, that have placeholder text in them. So they don't want you to create this beautiful dancing avocado mug and then show the back of it and have it just say your name or your text here. It needs to truly represent the product that the customer will be holding in their hands. You can still, based on the reading of this, still use those as the supporting images if you really want to, but if you're swapping out that first image anyway and people get an idea of what that's looking like, I don't know why you would need to do that. The third big thing is that they clarified their stance on AI, and they basically said, as long as you're disclosing that you're using it, you can use it to create any part of a product or the entire product, as long as that product is creative in some way. So they don't want you selling prompts, they don't want you selling bundles of prompts, and they don't want you selling anything, obviously, that would otherwise violate their guidelines, like adult content. Other than that, if you're using it to create the entire product to aid you in design, perfectly okay to use AI inside of the Etsy ecosystem, as long as you're indicating that during the product creation process.
Cool. That was good. And look at that. I'm back. Okay. So a lot that we covered there. We have a bunch of questions. We will do our best to get to those. Here's what I want to do though. First off, if you guys are getting value from this, if this is your first time here, or maybe you came back and you're like, yeah, Chris and Scott, they're giving some good information. If you could do us a favor, hit the like button. That helps us with the old YouTube algorithm. And if you want more of this type of content in the future, subscribe to the channel. We actually do shop audits every single Thursday. A new one will air. There will be one tomorrow that will be airing. And if you would like to get access to those, where we break down an Etsy shop with the owner and we go through growth strategies, you're more than welcome to join us by subscribing, and you'll get a notification when that airs, which is 9:30 a.m. Eastern time on Thursdays. And we also publish Monday, Tuesday. We do a Wednesday live, just like here. And we also publish on Friday. So if you would like to subscribe, you can subscribe. All right. And from that, we're going to move on. And Chris, let's answer a couple questions. Then let's get into the SEO black box discussion that was leaked. And then we'll move on. So I've got a bunch starred here.
Fillmore Pocket said Chris should be Josh for Halloween. That's a great one. We'll have to remember that when we do that. And Sweden said, maybe we should just replace Josh with Chris so he can get this mess straightened out. I don't know that I would want that job, but I'm more than happy to do some consulting to say, hey, like the one place where you didn't write this out in plain English, can we just fix that so that nobody has issues, right? Let's just start with that. And then if they want some more consulting, I'm more than happy to jump in. And I'll even throw on Josh's jacket just to make them happy. Sheila said, if I buy a design from a Fiverr creator, then I own the rights to it. That would be a contract where I hire them. If they're designing it for you, right, that is a unique design. If you are taking a pre-made design and selling that as your own product, that is not allowed in their terms of service. Beardo Gaming said, what about tarot reading and I sell it physically? They have a whole separate section on like service type stuff. And I don't think that was impacted by this. So whatever the rules were for that before should still apply. If you see anything differently, let me know. Not an area that we dive too much into, but I know they have a very specific section for like services around tarot, which seems like a weirdly specific thing for them to have rules about, but they do. What about 3D printing? So you are creating that finished product, right? Just because you're using a printer to help you with that doesn't mean you're not creating the finished product. When you go in to indicate what you use to help that, I even think, and I'd have to go back and look at the little PDF that I put together, 3D printing might be mentioned as one of the computer automated tools that they had for people. So let me pull that up really fast here and see. Computerized tools, laser printers, 3D printers, right? So you would apply, you just check that little box and say,
computerized tools and machines. Yeah.
Yep. I assembled it from scratch, or I made it from scratch, and I used a 3D printer to help me with that, right? Scott, help! Do you and your wife use Etsy Shipping International? It's so high, and I messed up and didn't charge the customer. Shipping to Australia is so high. I mean, 40 to 60 to hundreds of dollars, or 46 to 80 to hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, feel your pain.
Scared ghosty face.
Yeah, feel your pain. We don't right now. And for that reason, because the shipping was so outrageous. And if we were doing free shipping or discounted shipping, then you had it slowed everything down. And then you had a problem with tracking. And then you had a problem with them not getting it in time. And so my wife's like, I just don't think we're going to offer it right now. I'm like, yeah, I agree. So no, we're just not offering the international shipping right now. So yeah, especially around the holidays, Q4, that's a nightmare, man. Talk about like a customer service nightmare. Oh, even if you tell them, listen, if you're using international shipping, I can't guarantee you're going to get it for the holidays, and you'll still get people mad. So you just we don't want the negative reviews. It's not worth it.
Jacqueline said, what do we put digital downloads under? The digital option. So the very first option that you select there is physical or digital. You just pick digital, and it will show you the options that we showed, where it's like, I designed the entire thing myself. I used AI to help, or I put it together from other things. Beardo says, wait, so for tarot, do you put it as a physical product? You made it ready to order, made to order, right? And Dream Talking with Vicky said, I show an image of the spread, and then they have the questions that they can do. And I think that is the rules around that. I'm not sure exactly how you would set that up. I'm assuming you are the person making the product, because it's a unique thing each time.
Yeah.
And I believe the rules around that are that you have to include something tangible along with it. So it would be like a photo, like Vicky was talking about, or like a recording of you doing the psychic reading or the tarot reading along with that. So they get something physical to take with them.
Yep. Okay.
What about handmade sellers that use mock-ups for t-shirts or prints? If it is a handmade product, you cannot use a mock-up. The only time you can use a mock-up is if you're using a production partner. They're very clear about that. They got rid of a lot of the fluff, and they left that one line of confusion. But the one thing they were very clear about is the handmade products need to have a real photo. What about images generated by AI that Etsy stores are selling to be resold as is, like private label rights articles that seem to appear every other day? I guess these can't be sold anymore. If they created them, you can create bundles of those things and sell those. You cannot sell bundles of the prompts that they use to create those.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's get into the old SEO black box. Who wants to hear about SEO? Does anybody interested in SEO, or is it just me? Search engine optimization, getting ranked. Like what does it really take to get ranked? Who really wants to hear about that? Let me know in the comments before we get going here. I'm just curious if you guys were as excited as I am, because what you're about to hear is a recording that Josh Silverman did for a board for, I believe it was stock investors, or at least the growth of the company and what they're going to be doing and some of the struggles and things that they're doing, or the improvements they're doing to make it better. So we got anybody that wants to hear about SEO, Chris?
I do. I've heard this recording, and it still surprises me how open he was. And people were asking, is it a hot mic moment? And it's not. It's a straight up presentation.
Yeah.
Just not for the Etsy audience.
Yeah.
Right. It was some sort of like strategic conference that he did an interview for, and has made its way around a little bit online. And he got into some stuff that was more transparent than their seller handbook was previously. So it's curious to see some of those things starting to come to fruition.
And I would say this too, if you guys are new, or if you're just confused about SEO, our whole mindset with SEO hasn't changed. And even after listening to this, it hasn't changed. So if you want our SEO guide that we kind of use as, our guidelines and our checklists and things like that, if you want that, we have an SEO guide too. It's free. So if you want a copy of that, just put SEO in the comments and we'll make sure that we get you a copy of that. All right. So with that being said, let's get rocking and rolling. So I discovered an audio recording of Josh Silverman talking about what he called the SEO black box. Basically, what makes it work and how it works now, but how it's going to work in the future. And it's really interesting because there's some things in there that are not really what you would think that would get people ranked or that would get people results in search. What I will say is they are working on using new tools, AI, to help in this, but there's also some things that a seller can do. They're also going to be possibly, and this was something that I found really interesting, possibly also showing us as sellers what we can do to improve our SEO and giving us, well, just where we stand, kind of like the star seller. With that all being said, I got my good friend and data guy, Chris Schaefer, and we're going to listen to this together. We've already listened to it, but we're going to listen to it again, let you listen to it, and then we are going to discuss it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up now.
Especially excited about.
He's already talking. Wait a minute. Slow down, Josh. We're not ready for you. So this here was the 40th annual Strategic Decisions Conference in 2024. Let me just say, this was hard to find. I heard about it. I forget where I heard someone talking about it. I went and looked for it, couldn't find it. I thought it would have been on YouTube. It wasn't on YouTube. So I said, it's got to be out there. So I did a little bit of digging. I found it. And then what I did is I was able to record some of it myself so I could share it with you, because the SEO portion of this was very, very interesting. So that's what we're going to be listening to. And it's funny because you can hear the people there asking questions as if he was almost on trial. It's kind of funny. Like, he was there and they're like, so what are you going to do about this? And what are you going to do about that? There's also other parts of this that we're going to be doing in the future that have other aspects of Etsy that he was kind of grilled about. So we'll be publishing those as well. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. So let me go ahead and get it to the spot here where it's right in the beginning, right about there. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Right now that I am especially excited about is we're evolving the way that search works. We've been very focused on search over the past number of years to focus on relevance. So when you ask for something, we give you what you meant, not what you said. Search for dog scoops on Etsy, you're going to get dog scoops, not anything else. Search for, by the way, wedding dresses, you're going to get wedding dresses, not wedding dress hangers, which is a really hard thing for a search engine to understand. And only using the power of things like Gen AI do we now understand the difference. But what we haven't had before is a real quality score to balance that. We have thousands of items that are so similar in relevance according to our search engine. So instead of having our sellers try to earn prominence through keyword stuffing, if you're a seller on Etsy and you Google, like, how do I get ranked higher on Etsy, you're going to see 10 YouTube videos about keyword stuffing. That's not what we want. That doesn't make the buyer experience better. It actually makes the buyer experience worse. Ship on time. Have a fair shipping price. Always get 5-star reviews. Respond to customer convos very quickly. Include a handwritten note. These are the things that customers care about. And when we can transparently surface quality scores to our sellers in their dashboard, here's how we rank the item quality of each of your items, and here's how we rank your service quality overall as a seller. And the better you do on these metrics, the more you earn your way to prominence in search. That's how we elevate the best of Etsy. That's how we make a uniquely human buying experience, and we create a race to the top that's not only better for sellers because they have more agency, but it's better for buyers as well. That's something we're very hard at work at, and I'm very encouraged and optimistic by the opportunity there.
How much of an undertaking is that?
Big. We have today a black box search engine, and so what it's trying to do is, for every search query, look at 115 million items, pull the, let's say, 6,000 or so that it thinks are most relevant, and then rank from 1 to 6,000 your likelihood to purchase each one. That's at a very, very high level.
The likelihood, the likelihood, I got to get moving wherever that was there. The likelihood of you potentially buying it. So that's the interesting thing. And he said black box. So basically, like, okay, we're doing this off of what we're doing now, but this is going to evolve. Anything on that yet, Chris?
I'm starting to feel vindicated. So first, he talked about the YouTube videos and saying a lot of the YouTube videos that you see are talking about how to stuff keywords. Scott, remind me, is that something that we've said is a good SEO strategy?
Yeah, we've never said that. We never will, because we never believed that putting keywords in there necessarily is what their ranking factor is. We've always said the ranking factor, the biggest one is, yes, you want to put the keyword in there. The keyword, not like a whole bunch of keywords that you think that are like, oh, they might get found for this. There's usually 2 to 3 keywords that are being the drivers. But from there, it comes down to sales. And if there's something selling then it's going to come down to, okay, let's say there's 4 items that are selling really well. Then what it's going to come down to? It's going to come down to that score. And part of that score is going to be your reviews. It's also going to be your conversion rate. There's all of these other aspects in there. And now it sounds like they're going to be moving towards the seller's score and how that's going to also help you in search.
Well, and so that's actually something that he mentioned in the recent video that they did, where they said, we're changing a lot of things, and they changed their AI policy, the image policy, and the listing categories. They kind of glazed over it. And so it's interesting to see, because this was a few months ago, or at least a few weeks ago. I forget exactly when this was, where they were talking about that. And now they've announced it publicly to sellers that they're going to be more transparent about this. I disagree where he says it's a black box. I get where he could say, okay, it is a black box because we don't tell sellers, right? We should tell sellers. Why wouldn't we tell sellers? Because if we're evaluating the right things, then it doesn't matter if sellers try to game the system. You can't game good customer experience, right? And so if that's the thing that we're tracking, if we're tracking the product that is most likely to sell, which appears to be what they're doing anyway, which is the rant that you and I have gone on every time somebody asks us how Etsy SEO works. It's, does it qualify, right? He said, so we start with, 115,000 or 100, whatever the number of listings was. Then we say, what are the 6,000 most relevant? How do we rank those? By how likely they are to sell. Well, if we think logically about what that looks like, what are the things that indicate how likely it is to sell? Is it a brand new product? Does it have a sales history? If it has a sales history, how well does it convert? When someone converts, do they like the product? Meaning, did they leave a review, and was it a good review, right? Mm-hmm. We can look at all of those things now, and that's how you and I have always approached SEO. So hearing them admit that now makes me feel a little bit vindicated. I'm curious to see what else they dive into here, but the fact that they're admitting that's how it works now and that they're going to be a little bit more transparent about it is really cool.
And I will say once again, like we created a guide about 1.5 years ago, and the guide, it doesn't need to be updated because it's basically what we've said from the beginning and nothing has changed. So if you guys want a copy of that, like I said, just put SEO in the comments and we'll make sure that we get you a copy. All right. I got to see where I was here.
Uniquely human buying experience, and we create a race to the top that's not only better for sellers because they have more agency, but it's better for buyers as well. That's something we're very hard at work at, and I'm very encouraged and optimistic by the opportunity there.
How much of an undertaking is that?
Big. We have today a black box search engine, and so what it's trying to do is, for every search query, look at 115 million items.
All right, we already heard that part. Let me skip ahead here. I'm just a little bit, I don't want to miss anything.
Likelihood to purchase each one. That's at a very, very high level how Etsy works today. It's black box, it's magical, and it works pretty well. We've got to create an understandable and explainable search engine that works almost as well. And so factors like, do you consistently ship on time and do you consistently get 5-star reviews influence search in a really meaningful way. And it doesn't need to be as good as the black box model, because as soon as we can start to explain and make sellers' scores transparent to them, they'll raise their game in the areas that they need to, and that will make the buying experience better, will drive more frequency, and that will offset any loss in the benefit of an explainable model versus black box model. But first, the explainable model needs to get good enough, and we need to be able to start to explain to sellers how it works and train them. So it's going to be a bit of a journey, but it's a journey we're very focused on right now, and you should expect to see progress this year.
Does it roll out in phases and tests? How does that work?
That is how we normally do things, is we roll things out in phases, we test things, we learn what works, and also we need to bring our sellers along and we need to bring our buyers along. And so you usually see us iterate.
Okay. So, Chris, I love it that he says the magical box, or the black box SEO is magical, right? And yeah, I guess it could be magical. But
the problem that I'm struggling with here is that he said, we have to come up with an explainable model. I mean, it's fairly explainable if you look at it the way that you and I have been talking about it. People, tell me if I'm wrong, like if I'm missing something. Do the keywords that you use represent the search? And then
Yep.
how likely is someone to buy it versus the other products? All of those things are scoreable now. So I don't understand why we have to wait to the new model to be transparent. I'm a fan of win-wins for buyers. And I think one of the things that he said, and it sounds like it's a new thing, but it's really not, Scott. He mentioned shipping times and customer satisfaction, right? One of the things they're really trying to drive is an increase in conversion rate and an increase in repeat customers. Well, we already know that one of the things that influences conversion rate is shipping times and shipping cost, right? That's something they've been hammering on for the last 2 years at Etsy. And so the fact that they're openly now saying not only does shipping play a small role, but it will potentially play an even bigger role moving forward. And we get asked all the time, should I include free shipping to rank higher? And the answer is, it is a ranking factor that they tell us that they consider, but it's not really the end of the world. Now we're going to have a score that will show us as a seller, at least, whenever they fully decide to roll this out, did this make a difference in my rankability or not? And if so, then I'll continue to charge for shipping. Or if not, I'll charge for shipping. And if it did affect my rankability and my traffic, then I'll stop charging for shipping and take advantage of that extra little boost.
Yeah. And someone had said in the comments that it seems like it's like the star seller. You're right. They're giving you like what it takes to become a star seller. But then you ask yourself, well, what does a star seller do for me? Right. You're like, who sees that I'm a star seller? But if what they're saying is you're going to have a score, and the better your score is, it's going to give your listings more opportunity, because we're going to show those listings higher than someone that has a weaker score. Right. And so I like that idea, and I'm really anxious to see when that rolls out. I'm not really thinking it's going to be before Q4. I think it'll probably be after the first of the year. Now, if they roll something out in beta, maybe, but I'm pretty excited about it because it will at least give us something, or and like he said, he's smart about this, where he said, we're going to show you what it takes to show up in search. And it's just like a star seller. We're going to show you how to become a star seller. How many people out there want to become a star seller? If you're not a star seller, how many want to become one? How many want to keep their star seller status? Even though you might think, does it really do anything? You still don't want to not be a star seller, because star seller is the best that you can be. Okay. And so that has worked to help sellers be quicker at responding, quicker at shipping, right? Following up, like it has. So what he's saying is, we've tested it over here with Star Seller, but now what if we gave people the thing that's really important to them that we hear a lot about, and that's SEO with search engines and getting ranked? Maybe we can use this model to get people to actually create a better user experience, a better buyer, process. So this way here, they're getting something better, you're getting something better, and it's a win-win. So I think it's smart. I can't wait for this thing to roll out, but I'm just going to go back to what Chris and I have said so many times. It's not about finding the keyword and stuffing the keywords. So if that's what you're trying to do, I'm going to tell you right now, you're just wasting your time. Like I've told people time and time again, if you are just trying to find keywords, or a keyword that you haven't found yet, because it's going to be that magical one that makes you rank, that keyword that you found that no one else has found probably doesn't get any searches. And you're going to probably rank on page 1. But what good is that? You want to rank for the top keyword, and everyone knows what your top keyword is. So how do you then compete against that? Sales. And then I know we're going to get the question, which is, well, how do I get sales? We've talked about that on past live streams, on videos. Really, the way that we look at it is, in the beginning, you've got to sacrifice profits, and you have to maybe reduce your price, maybe run ads, or maybe both, and get the sales going. If you have an email list, push something for a week or two, get the sales coming through, get the reviews coming through, follow up with your customers. But it really does come down to common sense. And that's why we've talked about building a brand, right? If you're building a brand, we're communicating with the customer. We're making the customer happy. We're getting the customer to know more about us. That's what they want. They just stated this in their big breaking news announcement, making commerce human again. And so to me, this stuff is very obvious. It's been obvious. It's just now they're going to put something out there for you to kind of shoot for, which is also going to make you become a better seller to your customers. And I think it's also going to make the ones that are just keyword stuffing, the ones that are just trying to game the system, they're going to put them out of business, or at least they're going to put them out of search. So to me, I think it's a great thing, and I'm really looking forward to this. And I hope you guys are as excited as I am for what's to come with SEO. Chris, you got any last bits of words you want to share there?
Some snippets of wisdom.
Some snippets
Scott,
of wisdom.
Listening to that, does your approach to SEO change even after that score rolls out? Because it sounds like what he's saying is they still are looking for the products that are the most likely ones to be purchased, which is the only thing that makes any sense.
Right.
And so is there a change in your approach to SEO either between now and when that score rolls out, or short of something insane happening when that score rolls out, after that score rolls out?
Yeah.
Because
No.
it really, to me, sounds like it's coming down to, do you rank, right? Like, are you relevant in any way? And then how likely is it for somebody to buy you versus to buy mine?
Yeah.
Am I missing something there?
No, you're not missing anything. And I think it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. And it's like we said, it does. Etsy is going to, they're not, okay. Now let's say this, let's say that you have less sales, but you have 5-star reviews. You have, you're a star seller, right? But there's someone else that gets more sales on that same item, and they have a good score. They're going to outrank you because they're getting more sales, bottom line. And we said it before, the only other factor that would come down, let's say that you guys are neck and neck. You guys are both the same. You got you and someone else, you're selling the same amount. Your star seller is the same. Your review count's the same. All that's the same. What's the only other thing that Etsy would look at? And that is conversion rate. So are your images better? Do they like your shop design better and it feels like it's trusted more, right? If you convert even 0.5% or less more than that other person, and you guys are neck and neck with everything else, you're going to be the one that outranks, because Etsy's going to put you on top, because they have the data on you that says when this person gets 100 people to come to their listing, they convert at 3%. So that's 3 sales. This other one, they convert at 1%. They get 1 sale. Who would you send traffic to if you were Etsy? The one that makes more sales, right? Makes sense. So to me, it's very, very simple. And again, I'm going to just throw it out there. This is what we've been preaching forever. We have a guide, goes over it, all the best practices, SEO. Just put it in the comments and we'll send you a copy.
Yeah, and Scott, that immediately raises the question, and I'm sure we're going to get it in the chat more than we already have. But okay, so I have a new shop, right? I have a new shop, no history of customer reviews. How am I ever going to get found in search? The same way you do now, right? So the first test that they're looking at now, and it sounds like this is what they're trying to eliminate, is the keyword reliance, because they know that keyword stuff titles are a crappy buyer experience. Yep. And so what they want you to do is accurately describe the product. The problem is they're relying on that right now for the first part of the test. And so once you are determined, and I think he said 115 million, not 115,000, right? They got a lot more products than I gave him credit for. The 115 million listings, which 6,000 are relevant for this keyword, they look at that before they look at the sales history right now. So what they're trying to do is replace that step. The next step then is, how likely is this to sell? If you don't have a sales history, they still give you a chance in those search results until they can gather enough data to say Scott's sells better than Chris's does. Right. And once they do that, then the regular algorithm takes over. That's why you hear people talking about the new Etsy boost, right? Or the new listing boost, because they give you more exposure to try to gather that data. Weenie Riot said, I imagine the Etsy SEO black box being much like Schrodinger's cat. It's both alive and dead at the same time. Chrissy Connell said, I create a design and the buyer can add their name. I'm not sure how that involves creativity on the buyer side. And that was Etsy's way of saying that, right? Basically, if the buyer has to do something, it fell into, I think the category was curated. We talked about that 2 hours ago now at this point, but it's the curated by, right? You created it. Somebody puts their name on it. It's curated by you. Who knew? I think Etsy calls it a black box because Etsy itself doesn't know all of the ways that search is operating. Maybe really what he's talking about there, I think, is that there's just no transparency in that at this point.
And most honestly, like okay, YouTube, they're not going to tell you what all of the, data points are, but they are going to tell you that we want you to get a good click-through rate. We want you to get a good audience retention rate. And if you do those things, you're probably going to rank higher. That's what they give you, right? And so it's very simple, but it's not as like we give you so much percentage when you get a higher click-through rate, or if you get comments, like another video gets the same engagement, this, that, or the other, but you get more comments, you get more likes, things like that. Those are also going to factor in. It's very similar to Etsy. They're not going to tell you everything, or else then people are going to find ways to game the system. You can't game the system by replying quicker, right? Like you can't, like you just either have to reply quicker or you can't game that. It's like years ago with blogging, get more backlinks over to your site and then you're going to rank. So then what happens? You get companies that are going to sell you backlinks from these other sites to push up your ranking. So we're going to now Google comes up with a Google slap and then everybody gets wiped out. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter what platform. Amazon, same thing. Use your super link, your super URL that says your keyword. Like remember years ago, Chris, we would type in our search, garlic press, and then we would search it. And then at the end of the URL, it would say search keyword garlic press, and you would use that as your super URL, and then you would drive traffic to that, and that would manipulate the algorithm. But then guess what happened? They figured that out, and then they put a little patch in there that made that not work anymore. There's always ways to game the system, and that's what they're trying to avoid. But the simple thing is if you're doing these best practices, you pretty much are going to win. So I would say, going back to the person that's brand new, the thing is you have to get out of the mindset that you're new, you're not going to spend any money, and you're just going to do it for free. And once you start making money, you'll start spending money. That's not how it's going to work. Not unless you get super, super lucky, because most everything has already been put into Etsy, right? It's already there. So the only way that you're going to be able to start getting sales is you have to create a great product that's in demand. And then from there, you have to find a way to get it in front of people in the beginning. How do you do that? Etsy ads. Like bottom line, you're going to need to use Etsy ads. And if you use Etsy ads, maybe you run a sale for a week or two, bring down that cost, or you bring down your cost. So that way there you can get more sales. You're going to make less profit. You might not make any profit, but that's what you're doing to more or less get your item and get that flywheel started. That's the cost of doing business. But a lot of people that are on Etsy, they don't believe in that they're in a business. They just think it's a hobby. It's a side hustle. I'm going to do it on the side. I'm not going to, invest anything. Even $5 a day, for ads is going to go a long way. So that's the big thing, for people that are just starting, is you have to understand and treat this like it's a business. You have to invest a little bit, and you have to understand what it takes to actually work. Because if not, think about it. Everybody would just start, stuff keywords and rank. Like, there you go. Like, game over, right? And by the way, too, Etsy ads, that's another black box that people don't understand. We have another guide for that. If you want that, we have a full Etsy ads guide that we go through, break down our strategy. Once again, if you want that, just put ads in the comments, and we'll make sure that we get you a copy of that. Chris, we got one more thing we got to cover. Okay, we got time to cover that thing? Probably take us 10 minutes.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. So let me go ahead and get that queued up and make sure that I can actually share it. So let's see here. If you guys have any other quick questions, throw them in there. Throw them in the comments. We'll probably have to come back to do another full roundup of all these questions and try to answer those. Let's see here. Share screen. And there it is. All right, cool. There it is. Sneak peek. And let me go back over here. There we go. All right, cool. All right, so Etsy's been rolling out a lot of updates, a lot of new features, and they actually just rolled out and announced that they're doing something they're calling Made for You. And it's really for the buyer, but it really can help us sellers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up and we're going to break it down together. And I'm going to go through these new updates, or at least this central location of these updates and these features that are going to help the buyer, but also in turn help us sellers. So let me go ahead and pull this up. And this is the page right now that you can find on Etsy, and it's called Made for You. And this is the spring 2024 edition. Well, guess what? Summer edition's coming, then fall edition will be coming, and then winter edition will be coming, right? So Etsy, helping you get the most out of our marketplace. Find the best of Etsy and gift better every time. Now, this is something I'm assuming they're going to probably run ads to. They're going to advertise, whether that's on Google, whether that's on Facebook. This is going to be where they're going to be driving their traffic. The cool thing is a lot of this stuff, we're going to be there, right? Like we talked about this before, like for us to be able to be on the platform, we can complain all we want about Etsy, but they're still giving us opportunity to play in their sandbox, in their play yard. And so let's just kind of go through this. So we all know they announced the gift mode thing, right? And that was right around the Super Bowl, I believe it was, right? That was the big announcement. They spent like $7 million on that commercial, which was a horrible commercial. But they still did, right? But here, right? Find the perfect gift. Now deals are even better. Spotlighting the best. Delivering dependability. So these are all things that they're focusing on. Okay. And we can drill in, or we can just go and get to these shortcuts, but I'm going to scroll here. So find the perfect gift. All right. So again, they're really focusing on this here. So if I clicked on this or went to this video, it's going to basically say, hey, we're going to help you with finding the best gift. And now they have like filters. They have like you basically building a profile for the person that you are gifting for. And then it's going to give you choices. And it's going to allow you to select these choices, which is really cool. I'm not going to dive into that right now because you've probably already seen it. I'll link this up in the description as well, and you can go through it. But I really want to get into this. So this is like, okay, an example of how this would work, right? So the gift mode, you would be here and be like, oh, I know someone that's a bird watcher. You know, my grandmother's a bird watcher. So let's go ahead and we would click on that, and then we would go find something for the bird watcher. The host, the music lover, the Zen seeker, the dog lover, right? So they have a whole bunch of these categories in gift mode. Really exciting. That's not new probably for you. You probably already heard about this. But the cool thing is if you're not putting gift, if your item is giftable, if you're not putting gift in your title or in your tag, you're missing out, because this here now is a way for you to signal Etsy and say, hey, I want to be in your gift mode thingy. Right? So if you're not doing that, I would definitely make sure that you do that. So that's pretty exciting, especially with Q4 coming up, because why? It's the biggest gift season of the year. So we want to be there. All right. All right. The next thing they rolled out here was the gift teaser. All right. Now this is a way for you. And they also have it where you can either reveal it or you can blur it out. You can this to me is for someone that was like, they forgot and then they had to do something last minute. Chris, what do you think about the gift teaser feature?
That's actually the exact example they use in the commercial for this. If you remember, Scott, when they rolled this out, they did the commercial with the group of friends stuck upside down on the roller coaster.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, snap, it's her birthday or whatever. And she sent her the thing and she opens it up, right? The other use for this, and I think you and I talked about this, is for somebody like me who's not necessarily home at every holiday. If something, I'm getting a really unique thing created on Etsy, and I know it might not be there, even if I shopped, 3 weeks in advance because it's a custom product. I want the teaser to show up on their birthday or on 4th of July or on Christmas, right?
Yep.
And so then they can, if they want to spoil a surprise, get it and actually look at it. The way that I've always handled this in the past is you like go into Canva and you're like, this is what you're going to get. And you print it out and hand it to them, right? This is a much more high-tech way of doing that. And they actually rolled out videos as well. So you can shoot like a video teaser for the person and let them know what they're going to get. So it feels a little bit more personal than just, oh, look, cool product. Awesome.
Right. So that, again, for us, is this something that the seller is benefiting from? Not really, although it is in a sense, because someone that's going to look for your gift, they might want your gift to give to a gift and you might not be able to get it there in time, but they can at least show them that it's coming. So I think that that's just a nice little feature. The registry, it's another opportunity for if you are, in the wedding niche or the baby niche or, something like that, where there could be a registry built. You can now go in there and make an Etsy registry as a buyer. But again, if your products are for, a wedding, a baby christening, like whatever, you're going to be able to be added to this. Gift cards, that's been there forever, so we won't really talk about that. Now deals are even better. So they have a deals tab now. Now this is inside of the app. And I think this is really, really good because, again, you and I have talked about this before, Chris. If you're not running a sale, you probably won't be in the deal tab. Right, Chris? Isn't that accurate?
Well, if it's not a deal, you don't have a chance of being listed as a deal, right? And you'll see if you go to the website, Scott, they're getting kind of aggressive with this as well, where they're saying it's the best deal that's happened. This is the best sale that they've run. They're doing the same thing here, just making it a little bit less intrusive than they're doing on the website right now.
Yeah, so that's cool. So that's there. Discount reminders. Okay, so this here now, if let's say that you added something to your cart, well, before they were sending you an email, okay, which is fine, and they're still doing that. But then they're doing this here too, that will give, like right here, get friendly in-cart reminders to save when you're ready to buy, so you never miss out. So let's say that you went back to your cart and you hadn't purchased yet, you can now possibly see, hey, there's this 10% off thing there. Maybe you should take advantage of it. And it probably shows up, I'm imagining, in your messages, which I'm not sure how many people look at the messages, but you are going to be able to get an email if you signed up to receive emails from Etsy, but also probably going to see this in your cart. So again, yes, it's a perk to a buyer, but to me, as a seller, it's another conversion mechanism to increase the conversions for showing up and reminding the seller or the buyer that the seller's offering something special.
Yeah, and this used to, Scott, just be limited to the email that would go out. And I think they limited it to like 6 or 7 offers. So if somebody added a bunch of stuff to cart, your offer might not even go out. Now, both in the app when you go into the cart or on the website, and hopefully they fix this before Q4, but basically every time I would look at a product, it would say, here's all the offers for the stuff that you have in your cart, right? Like, we can limit it to the cart. We don't have to be quite that aggressive, but the fact that you're seeing that and saying, hey, the seller offered you 10% off if you add it now, that should increase conversions for sellers.
Yeah, I like that. So that's there. Make an offer. That's also something else that they rolled out not that long ago, that they can make an offer on your product. Now, this is, I mean, if you wanted to accept it, you can. Me personally, like, we're not about wheeling and dealing. Like, we're not like it. This feels a little eBay-y to me, right? Like, hey, will you take 50 or, what I don't personally like that. But you have it right here. Etsy sellers can now opt in to a tool for seamlessly negotiating an item's price with prospective buyers. Look out for a make an offer button on the listing page for eligible items. So if your item is eligible, you can click a box and then this would come up for the buyer. So, and you can say, hey, if someone wants to get a discount, you're more than welcome to make an offer. So there's that. Spotlighting the best. So another reason why we want to have great products, shop Etsy's picks. So let's read this real quick. Now it's simple to spot the best items on Etsy. When you see the Etsy's pick badge on a listing, that means you're looking at one of our favorite items or a reliable shop, there we are again, that has been carefully selected by our style experts. You can easily filter your search for Etsy picks on the website or in the app so you can shop the best Etsy sellers have to offer. Once again, we're looking at this page as a buyer, but I'm looking at what it's required or what is required to be an Etsy pick. One thing there, a reliable shop, message people on time, deliver on time, good communications, and good product. So again, another thing that they're going to be doing here, spotlighting the best. Shop the look. This is kind of interesting here. Now on the Etsy homepage, we feature a series of home and style images tagged with additional item listings so you can shop a complete look as well as get more products recommendation based on your taste. This is interesting because, Chris, you and I talk about building product lines. Well, what they're basically saying here is if you bought an apron, you might want an oven mitt, right? And, and you might want a cutting board. So they're saying exactly what we've said in the past. And wouldn't you like to be all 3 or 4 of these products versus it just being the one? Yeah, you can show up in one of these that supports a product that they purchased. Like if someone else has an oven mitt and then you have an apron, you could show up here, which is pretty cool. But what if you had all of these products and now they're recommending these products? I think it's really cool.
One thing here, Scott, they keep talking about all the things they're doing to change SEO to move forward. This is yet another way where they're just trying to get around that search bar, right?
Yeah.
They know if they can recommend you the next thing you're going to buy, then you don't have to search for it.
Right.
What is the next thing? Scott, if you buy a set of kitchen knives, what is the next thing you are most likely to buy? Is it a handsaw? Probably not. It's probably a cutting board. Right? Or an apron or an oven mitt because you're in kitchen shopping mode. And so they already have gathered this data. They already use customization to some extent in their search results.
Yep.
This is just them taking that to the next level by looking at patterns in buyer behavior to say, when Chris buys this, he might also like this, right? It's if you give a mouse a cookie approach to product recommendations. And as a buyer, I like it. As a seller, I love it.
Yeah. Sustainability filters. Okay. So, use the search filter to shop your values and find items made using sustainable processes and materials. I don't think this one's as huge. I don't think a lot of people are going to be using filters, but it's there. Okay. Again, they're trying to make the buyer search easier, faster to help them find what they're actually looking for. So once again, this is where you want to make sure you fill in your listing properly in the back end. If it's hemp, linen, upcycled, like you want to make sure you put that stuff in there because then you're going to be located possibly in another search function, which is also good. Delivering dependability, delivering on time or your money back. We know how important it is to receive an item when you need it. That's why during the 2023 holiday season, we reminded shoppers about Etsy purchase protection, which included our guarantee that items would arrive on time or your money back. Today, you can still shop confidently knowing you'll get a full refund if your order isn't as described, arrives damaged, or doesn't arrive at all. So a lot of sellers that I've been hearing from, they're not really sure they love this because sometimes it's out of their control. So Chris, what's your thoughts on this?
It's great if they follow the policy. And I think that's the issue. When we did the breakdown of, I think, what was the crazy term that they used? Like the trust and safety team. I forget the exact verbiage that they used, right? But it was a very big, scary sounding name. When we went through that report, it turned out that they were just issuing those refunds in a handful of hours. And there was no possible way that they could have actually looked at whether it was delivered or not when we look at the size of that team and the number of refunds that were issued and some of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And just from the anecdotal reports that we see from a seller perspective, they're basically doing what PayPal used to do, which is just give them their money back. We'll sort it out later.
Right.
Not really cool from a seller perspective, but a great thing from a buyer perspective. Do you potentially spin up a handful of people who are going to take advantage of the system once they figure it out?
Yeah.
Yes. Are most people that way? No. Right. And so we can't think about it that way from a seller perspective. We do have to remember that this is a conversion rate increase for buyers. And then if something happens and something stupid happens, then we fight that tooth and nail, right? It's a good idea. It's a better idea if they follow their own rules when it's implemented.
Yeah. I mean, the example I would use, if I'm buying sneakers and I buy them and they don't fit right, I want to know ahead of time that I can send them back and it's not going to cost me anything. If you tell me I'm going to have to pay for shipping and it's going to cost me $15 to send them back, I'll just probably look for them in a store or I'll buy them on Amazon, right? Because I know I don't have to deal with that. So I think this is a smart move as far as a conversion mechanism to increase conversions, which we want. Are you going to get some people that abuse this? Maybe, but I really probably wouldn't worry about it. But it is making sure that you're going to follow through as well. And all it really means is if you think that it's going to take a week for your production company to print your stuff, then make it a little bit longer if you want. Make it for 10 days, and they might get it early and be surprised. But just don't overpromise and underdeliver, I think is the big takeaway there. Find local shops. That's something new, where you can actually look for shops that are listed on Etsy that are actually a brick and mortar, and you can kind of go into the shop. So I guess that's a cool feature.
The only application I can think of this from an Etsy perspective is that it brings down shipping time.
Yeah.
Theoretically. So if you're shipping from California to California, the shipping time should be shorter, right?
Yeah.
Than it would be to Maine, for example.
Yeah. And I think
because it's not like they're telling people not to buy on Etsy and to go into the brick and mortar, right? They're not saying go to Art by Flynn's studio. They're saying buy from Art by Flynn here, but hey, she just happens to be around the corner in California.
Or they're doing this to say you might want to buy from this one, but you might want to find someone else that's in a location that's closer to you. So that could actually hurt you, because what it's saying is ships from California, shorter shipping distances are kinder to the planet. So basically what they're saying is this ships from California, but you might be able to find a vendor closer to you. Not necessarily that they're going to walk into the shop, but it's going to ship closer and it's going to cut down on ship time. I don't know. I don't love it, and I don't know how many people are going to look at that and go, oh, I'm going to look for the place closer to me. It's kind of like Amazon has all these different warehouses, and for them internally, it costs less to ship because it's closer, but they just created hundreds, if not thousands now, of Etsy or Amazon warehouses. So that's basically what we're looking at here. It's a what we call a landing page. It's a page that they're going to drive traffic to. And this is for a buyer primarily, but a seller can look through this and go, oh, cool. But this is a way to make it easier for people to navigate the Etsy platform. So Made For You is a brand new thing that Etsy just rolled out. We'll see what happens from here. But I have to say, I think Etsy has done a really good job at trying to bring awareness to the platform, but also making the buyer experience better. And I have to give them kudos for that, because this here is just another example of them putting something in like gift mode, putting something together that allows you to click and kind of find things, make it easier for you to locate things and to hopefully find what you're looking for. And as a seller, that's really nice for us, because it does create more opportunity for us when we are in these categories or in these gift mode categories, or if we have a sale running, we're going to be in the discount now on that tab, or we are in the spotlight because we have really good shipping times, we have a good review rating and all of those things. So it does show that Etsy is trying really hard to bring awareness to the platform, but also highlight and spotlight the sellers that are doing a great job with great products. So I think it's a good thing. I'm pretty excited about it. Hopefully you are too. So Chris, man, I think we did it. I told you it was going to be a long one.
Yeah, it's a good one though.
It is a good one. It is a good one. All right, cool. So we got any quick questions? If not, we gotta wrap this baby up.
Yeah, Frutanical Ware says, could it be a shop local push? Yeah, maybe. My question with that is like, why? Right? Like if you're into shop local, do you want to give your money to a multinational corporation of Etsy to then give your money to somebody in the local community when you could just walk into the store? To me, it's more about like the environmental concerns, which is why they highlight that in the thing of longer shipping and further shipping, and trying to find somebody who can get it to you faster. That helps them satisfy two goals all at once. Elysian said, it reminds me of the old feature on Etsy where you could find Etsy artists who were coming to local craft fairs. And Scott, there was one question that we had about today's topic. I don't see it, but I think what it was, can we use AI models in our photos now? And the answer is yeah, as long as the product that's being represented accurately represents the product. You're not selling the model. That would be an otherwise violation of some of Etsy's policies, right? But you are selling the product. So it doesn't really matter if, it's an AI arm for you to show off your new watch band. As long as the watch band is accurately represented, you should be good to go.
Yeah. Cool. Last thing, real quick. How many of you are getting ready for Q4? Like, I'm just curious. Here we are, July 2024, and some people aren't even really thinking of Q4 yet. I'm here to tell you, and hopefully if you are still here, a while in, or maybe you're skipping through and now you're landing on this spot, this is a little nudge to start thinking Q4. Start planning Q4. We're gonna get ready ourselves. We're going to actually, we haven't even discussed it yet, but we did a boot camp last year, or a training camp for Q4, where we got together for 4 weeks. We might still do that. If you're on our email list, we'll be notifying you if we're going to be doing that. Chris and I still have to decide if we're going to. But if you are at all interested in joining us for a 4-week training camp, we're calling it, because it's kind of like going into the football season, Q4. It's kind of like getting ready for the football season. You got preseason, but before that, you got training camp, kind of like that. Last year we did it. It was great. Had a bunch of sellers that we helped, and it was just cool to get together for 4 weeks and really just kind of hunker down, and everybody's kind of working towards getting things ready for Q4, because once Q4 hits, we want to have everything ready. We want the seeds planted. We want things that are, potentially going to be purchased for Q4. We want them in there well in advance, and to start doing product research and stuff for the holidays and things like that. So if you're not yet on the email list, if you are interested in joining our email list, if you pick up any of our guides, you will be part of our email list. So today we talked about the 100K roadmap, which I think if you are just starting, or if you're not starting, you're just reworking your business and you want to kind of go after like building the brand like we talked about, the 100K roadmap would be a great place to start. That'll also put you on our email list and you'll get updates and things. That if you want that in the comments, just put 100K. The other guides were the SEO guide. If you want that guide, SEO in the comments. If you want the Etsy ads guide, put ads in the comments. All right. And then all of those will also put you on our email list. And you can always unsubscribe anytime, by the way. But we'll be able to keep in touch with you about upcoming things like our Q4 training camp that we're going to be hopefully doing. We haven't really fully committed to it yet, but we're thinking we're probably going to do it. And we'll give some updates there as we get closer to Q4 or closer to the end of the month. Anyway, with that all being said, this was a good one. And I think this was a lot of good news. I think we got clarity. I think, yes, we didn't get any clarity on the support stuff. Hopefully that'll be coming. We're going to still keep trying, guys. We're going to keep trying. And one way that you can help us do that is you can like this video. You can subscribe to our channel, because if we can get more people to rally together and really get a video to pop, then we can get the attention. We've done a couple of videos. We're going to do another one here probably coming up soon, where we're going to address it once again and try to get the attention, because they're listening. As Josh Silverman said, if I go and look for how to rank on Etsy, you're going to see 10 videos on keyword stuffing. We don't want to see that. So he's there. So hopefully we can get his attention. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us for almost 2.5 hours. So I want to say thank you, guys. We appreciate each and every one of you. Tomorrow, there will be a Etsy shop audit that's going to be published on the YouTube channel. Once again, another reason to subscribe. That's going to be published at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you get notified when it goes live. It's a good one. You're going to like it. You're going to enjoy it. And until next time, guys, take care, take action. Have an awesome, amazing day. We'll see you right back here on the next episode. Take care, guys.